I'm not sure what today is. 15th? 15th. It's January 15th. This is our regular board meeting. Happy New Year's to everyone. This is our first meeting of the year. We're going to call the meeting to order at 19:05. And this is the regular board meeting of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. Be advised, these meetings are televised. We have them on Channel 28, and they're on Wednesday evening and Saturday morning, so your image may be captured if it falls on one of the cameras, the many cameras that are operated throughout the room. We're going to start tonight with our flag salute, as we customarily do. And so I'd like to ask our principal, Ms. Esmont from Arroyo Seco, if you'd come up, and Sherry Johnston from Jackson Avenue, if you'd come up, introduce the students and lead us in the pledge, please.
Right. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our fifth grade student, Fritz Hohenstein.
I would like to introduce two of our students. We have Maggie Gleason and Aaliyah Naward, and they are both in our leadership class.
Please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag in the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yes, nice shot. Thank you. Sorry. Good job. Oh, I left my. All right. Forgot a paper. We're going to go into, we're coming back in, we're coming back into open session. We're coming out of closed session. So in closed session, we take some actions. Any action that we do take, we'll read out. And so I would ask our clerk, Mr. Rogie, to read out any action we took in closed.
Excuse me.
Yeah, all right.
In closed session, the board voted 5-0 to support the staff recommendation for the release of 3 probationary classified employees. And that's it for our readouts.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. Just some real quick housekeeping items. If you need to exit the room for any reason, there's some exits in the back. There's one on the side, or you can come back in through or go back out through the corridor we came in. Restrooms are located across the way, and no one's causing a disturbance in the meeting if you have to get up during the course of the meeting. Again, this is the regular meeting of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. Here our primary focus on the education of the students within this school district. So during our meeting, you, our members of the public, will have the opportunity to share information, voice your ideas or concerns regarding ideas and matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During our discussion on each item, there'll be a time that you'll have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, we would ask, it's not mandatory, but we would ask you to fill out a tan speaker card. They're located in the lobby. A few of you have done that today. We'll call you up to speak on that item during communication from the public. If you wish to address an item that is on the agenda, fill out the same type of card. It's baby blue, and they're located in the same location. And we'll call you up in no particular order. When you do come up, we'd ask you to make sure the green light's on the microphone. On the bottom, there's a little button. And then to look over to your right at our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Van Schack, he'll activate a little 3-minute light. And when the light activated, if you get down around 2:30 and you're not kind of wrapping up, I might politely just say that you need to wrap it up. And we just do this so that we can kind of keep the meeting running in an orderly fashion and kind of out of respect to anyone who might want to speak on things. Again, I would let you know that these meetings are televised. That's one of the reasons we want to make sure that the microphone's on so we capture the audio portion. And they're, let's see, it's on channel 28 at 7 o'clock in the evening, and they're on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. They're on channel 28, I believe, if you have, I think, Comcast. Moving to section 4, the agendas are posted on the side. Item 4 is changes to the agenda. And with that, I'd ask our superintendent, Dr. Kelly Bowers, if there's any changes, and if so, if you'd let us know.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're starting the new year off right. We do not have any changes to the agenda to report this evening.
How about recognitions?
Certainly, we actually have 2 very special recognitions, and this is always the most exciting and heartwarming part of our meeting. So first, we'll re-invite Mrs. Giti Asmat up to our podium. She is the very proud principal of Arroyo Seco Elementary School, the Colts, as you can tell by their t-shirts they're wearing, and she will be introducing a particularly hardworking group of parents. These are parent volunteers, and they really make up the Arroyo Seco Elementary School PTA, and they are the spirit behind all that happens for the kids in the community at Arroyo Seco. And they do this not only for their own children, but for all the children who go there. So, Mrs. Giti Asmat, please.
It worked. Glad I tried that.
It's always tricky.
Clearly it was. All right, so let's start over. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and the cabinet. As Superintendent Bowers said, my name is Giti Esmat, and I am the proud principal of Arroyo Seco. A school like Arroyo Seco is almost unexpected in today's world. It really is a little magical. Arroyo Seco's boundaries cross the city, supplying a smorgasbord of children and families. Each child, each family contributes new talents, ideas, skills, interests, labor, and financial support that nourishes and sustains our school. This wholesome mix of families and their willingness to donate time and effort, combined with a crew of extraordinary teachers and staff, makes Arroyo Seco a success. Dedication plus caring equals the magic that is Arroyo Seco. These dedicated, caring families compose the membership of the Arroyo Seco PTA. Our PTA is the backbone of our school community. They bring strength, consistency, and a sense of community to the families and staff of our school, passing our history and purpose from class to class. Our parent volunteers are dedicated individuals who donate many personal hours and dollars to support the teachers' efforts on behalf of the children. Parents, teachers, and staff have a common focus: the academic, social, and emotional training of all of our children in order to grow excellent citizens. Arroyo Seco parents have always embraced newcomers with welcoming arms and the opportunity to become involved in many different capacities. We know that we thrive when we reach out to all members of our school community with mutual respect and a shared sense of commitment and purpose. We are more than a school. We are the Arroyo Seco family. Tonight, I want to recognize and thank all of the families who donate their time, labor, and finances to our school, supporting the many activities and programs that would not exist without their hard efforts. I am always mindful that they have many avenues for spending their dollars, and I deeply appreciate their decision to donate to Arroyo Seco. Without their support, our cupboard would be bare. Stampede, Cultural Festival, Western Dance, Trunk or Treat, movie nights, ice cream sales, in-class volunteering, teacher appreciation. I know I have a time limit, so I'll stop there. All available because our PTA members dedicate their time, labor, and dollars to fundraise. This list of enrichments for the students are your dollars and dedication at work. Please pat yourselves on the back. So many times throughout the year, I think about how to say thank you to individuals and groups. Saying thank you appropriately would be a massive undertaking. because so many of you contribute in so many ways. I always worry that I'm going to miss someone and that mass thank yous do not convey the degree of my gratitude. I've concluded there's no best way to say thank you. However, the worst way is never to say it at all. So please know how much we appreciate your generous gift of self as well as your resources. We would not be able to operate without your support. This is an undisputable fact. So in my quest to appropriately thank all PTA members, leaders, and laborers in equal measure, I dedicate this public event in your honor.
Don't be shy. They actually did pat themselves a little bit on the back.
Part of that, isn't it? Glad you guys are all part of that. You guys have made the boys safer, awesome school.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the things you guys are doing. Thank you very much. Thanks for everything that you're doing. Appreciate it.
It's like a sports team. Thanks.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing. Thanks for helping out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
There's a Kodak moment outside now for that group. Oh. I guess there is no such thing as a Kodak moment in the digital age, so please help me. It's an iPhone moment, I guess. I don't know. A Snapchat, Instagram moment? What should I say?
Yeah, we're going to develop the film tomorrow. Yeah. And I believe we have another recognition.
We do. Okay, let's see. I'll move on now. I was thinking about 8-track tapes and other memories, so there we go. Next, we'll ask Mrs. Sherry Johnson to come forward. She is the proud principal of Jackson Avenue Elementary School, and she is here to introduce and honor a dedicated group of staff members whose work has a tremendously positive impact on students, and we're extremely grateful for that.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I'm Sherry Johnston, the principal of Jackson Avenue Elementary School. Tonight, I bring before you 3 of my 4 intervention specialists. Joe Dumovich is ill tonight and couldn't make it, but we have Jill Harmon-Beal, Virginia Halunga, and Ida Williams stand here before you. These outstanding professionals have joined Jackson Avenue this year as we reorganize our academic intervention. They have assessed 530 students' reading skills twice and will test a 3rd time before the end of this year. In addition to doing school-wide screening, they have done placement screenings on students who have been shown at risk. They have attended trainings with the other cohort members, studied with our retired Reading Academy teacher, and have worked closely with me as we develop and refine our Tier 2 intervention program. The most important work that they do is facilitating small group instruction following a skill-based program to support student reading development. These 4 individuals have the utmost patience, dedication, passion, and tremendous pride in their work. I am grateful for each of them and all they contribute to Jackson Avenue. Please join me in recognizing these awesome individuals.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move into section 6, and this is an opportunity. This is where our student board members give us some reports and updates on what's going on at one of our 2 comprehensive high schools. And so this evening, we're going to start with Olivia LaBarbera from Livermore High School.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I'm pleased to report that Livermore High has had a wonderful past month. I would also like to say that I hope everyone had a great winter break and enjoyed their holidays. That being said, school is back in full swing. Leadership is hosting a dark rally this Friday, and students are excited to see what it has in store. I've heard that there are a lot of fun activities and performances in the works. Last week, our leadership class went to TVLC, which is the Tri-Valley Leadership Conference. It's an event held annually that gathers leadership classes from various high schools around the Bay Area to collaborate on ideas. For the second year in a row, Livermore High won Most Spirited. This is a big honor and achievement for us, and we are thankful to be given the opportunity to go. Choose Love is currently being taught in select classrooms and is doing tremendously well. In partnership with Choose Love, leadership students also did an Operation Gratitude campaign where students wrote over 400 letters that will be sent to first responders and overseas troops. The admin is currently planning our expo night and is trying to involve themselves in the middle schools around the area to encourage registration. We can't wait to see all of the new Cowboys next year. Happy New Year, thank you, and remember that today is a great day to be a Cowboy.
Thank you. And then we're going to go to Avery Peralt from Granada.
Good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board and cabinet. First of all, Happy New Year. Since break ended, Granada has been off to a pretty quick start. The Monday we returned, Granada leadership also attended TVLC. We learned a lot of awesome new ideas and can't wait to implement them. Although Livermore did win, we still hung out with them a lot of the day and eased the rivalry a little bit, so it was still fun. Last week, another field trip was the Human Rights Club took a field trip to Oakland for a human trafficking symposium where they learned valuable information to take back to school and raise awareness, since that's one of their focuses, to raise awareness at school. The first week back was obviously a little bit rough for the students, but I think we got back in the full swing of things pretty quick. Seniors have mostly finished college applications, yay, and are beginning scholarship applications. Winter ball is also fast approaching. This year it's on February 2nd, so it's coming up really fast. Date asking has already started, so that's always exciting. Along with getting back into the swing of school, winter sports are in the middle of their season as wrestling, softball, and soccer take on many worthy opponents. Track also starts up soon, and other spring sports will be beginning soon, sooner than we realize. Overall, Granada is getting used to being back at school and getting excited to finish off the second half of second trimester. Midterms are starting and the Mats are thriving. So thank you, and as always, go Matadors.
Thank you very much. Moving into section 7, this is a chance for our employee associations, their leadership, to come in and kind of give us an update on what's going on with their membership. I believe Kate Sorrell's here. Are there any other members? I don't see Mamie. Well, I'll just go through some of the other members. Livermore Education Association is going to come up, and we also have CSEA, which is Mamie Kristovich, SEIU, Teresa Jennings, and then our confidentials, Cindy Hudson-Bueller.
Good evening, President Bueno, board members, Superintendent Bowers, cabinet members, members of the audience here and at home. My name is Kate Sorrell, and I'm the president of the Livermore Education Association. Last week, I had the opportunity to meet with some new certificated employees, and I was educating them about the Livermore Education Association, the California Teachers Association, and the National Education Association. Our members pay $315 a year in dues. We haven't raised our dues in over 9 years, despite the rising costs. Most of our expenses are related to representing the members of our bargaining units at the bargaining table, at district meetings, in meetings with district administrators, and attending school board meetings. Over the last 2 years, LEA has provided over $30,000 to help members attend professional development conferences, workshops, and webinars. One line item pays for registration and attendance at CTA conferences. 9 LEA members will attend CTA's Good Teaching Conference North at the San Jose Fairmont the first weekend in February. There are many workshops to choose from, including instructional strategies for students with IEPs, access to math for all learners, differentiated guided reading strategies, and team teaching and inclusion for all students. In March, 7 new teachers with 0 to 4 years of experience will attend the new Educators Weekend in Burlingame. Workshop offerings include positive growth mindset, behavioral interventions, strength-based learning, special ed for gen ed teachers, and double up with co-teaching. Subject and grade level workshops will also be provided. The other line item in our budget supports professional development opportunities from a variety of organizations. Teachers have attended Google and Q conferences and workshops, as well as math, science, music, PE, bilingual, and co-teaching conferences by state and national organizations. Our members return from these opportunities energized and excited to implement these new strategies and share them with their peers. Amy Thompson, our Vice President, has just returned from a school services governor's budget workshop where she learned the details of Governor Newsom's proposed 2019-2020 budget. Some of our trustees were present, as were Susan Kinder, Teresa Fiskus, and Chris Van Schack. On Thursday, we will attend the district budget workshop to talk about how our district can best spend the funds we will receive to benefit all of our students. On behalf of the counselors, nurses, psychologists, speech pathologists, classroom teachers, and teachers on special assignment, I would like to thank everyone who wore red for Ed last Friday. There is strength in numbers. When school boards, district admin, and employees, parents, and community members come together to demand the state provide full, fair funding for all public schools, we will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't believe there's any of the other representatives are here, so we're going to go to Section 8. This is communication from the public. Communication from the public is the time for our public to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on our agenda. We, the board, may listen to the comments and ask clarifying questions of staff, but we can either discuss or take action on meetings that aren't on the agenda, and this is in accordance with the Brown Act. So if there's anyone who would like to make or address a topic that's not on this evening's agenda, now would be the time to do so. I have a couple of cards up here, and I'll call you up. Again, I'd reiterate that we have about a 3-minute time limit, and you can, Deputy Superintendent Van Schack will activate that timer. There it is. So first off, I'm going to call up, we have some representatives from Sunflower Hill. You'd come up.
And I believe Mr. Salvaggio, who is he might help with the introductions for that as well. And since there are 2 people, they can actually have double time if they need it. Okay.
Yes.
So I quickly want to introduce these 2. They'll introduce themselves as well. Edie Nels and Rebecca Langstaff. Sunflower Hill plays a very important role in supporting our students with disabilities in the school district, and we've been very grateful for your work, and I know you want to share a little bit about it, so let's do that.
Thank you so much. Sorry, thank you so much for inviting us here this evening. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Bowers, and the Cabinet. We're really honored to be here tonight to share with you a bit about Sunflower Hill and our garden, Sunflower Hill Gardens Educational and Horticultural Education Program, serving adults and teenagers with developmental disabilities. Sunflower Hill, just to give you a brief overview, was founded in 2013 by 11 families in the Tri-Valley area who had children with developmental disabilities. And they came together to form a nonprofit really to address the needs of what would happen to their children when they passed on.
In 2015, Sunflower Hill Gardens was formed by the board of directors with two founding board members, Lynn Monica and Chris Bogart. And the Gardens was a program that was developed to give a place for the community to gather while the residential properties that are in process were being built. Chris and Lynn did an incredible job of building a therapeutic horticultural garden for individuals with developmental disabilities. Chris focusing primarily on the program, which our special needs teacher Rebecca Langstaff will speak to, and Lynn Monica focusing on the building of the garden and how to create a garden that would really suit people's needs so that there's ample space for individuals to walk between the rows, wheelchair accessibility issues, and needs along those lines. What's also really amazing to know about Sunflower Hill is we have two robust programs and two residential properties in action. The lion's share of that work was done by a working board of directors. It's only been in this past year that the board has hired staff to professionalize the organization and bring the organization to fruition. So I turn it over to Rebecca Langstaff, our special needs teacher.
Hello, and thank you for having us. I want to begin with a quote from one of our founding board members and founding garden directors, Chris Bogart, who you already heard about. She's often heard out in the garden to say that our primary goal is for individuals to leave the garden always wanting to come back. And I really think that this sentiment helps to drive a lot of our decisions and our processes out in the garden. So tonight I'd like to tell you about 3 of the ways that we do that in our garden space. The first is providing a predictable routine. We want our ranchers, our special need individuals, that's what they go by, ranchers, to anticipate what they're going to experience every time that they come. This starts with a welcome and a lesson provided in our tree classroom, which is literally sitting on stumps underneath an oak tree. It's very special. And then we transition into the garden, where the bulk of our time is spent working in the land. Finally, we will close with a snack where we enjoy the food from the garden itself, and we try to introduce healthy eating habits. And the primary focus at that point is also our discussion. We answer questions that say, what did you do today in the garden, so they can visit with one another, and then they tell us what they thought about that time. It helps to inform that not everything is glamorous out in the garden, but it needs to get done. And it helps me to decide what to do moving forward with those students. The second way is engaging in lessons. I really strive to have interactive curriculum that is designed to teach both general garden topics such as plant life cycles, 4 seasons, composting, as well as garden work instruction. Things like, how do you use big tools in the garden? How do you use small tools? What are some methods for harvesting different foods? And how do we use our bodies safely so that we can provide the work that needs to get done? I also try to include the students in the interaction of the lesson teaching itself. We know that everyone learns differently, so I try to approach everyone uniquely. It's not uncommon to hear me singing a song, often that I have made up, but it helps to reinforce the lesson that we're learning that day. They'll be seen bringing photographs up and putting them on an interactive board, as well as having a lot of visual aids, things they can touch, things they can smell, things that they often will taste. The idea is to make a lofty concept tangible that they can take home with them. The second way is through hands-on gardening tasks. Like I mentioned before, the bulk of our time is spent working in the fields. Getting dirty is what we like to invite you everyone to do with us. I work closely to accomplish this with our farmer, Lena Valenzuela, to plan appropriate tasks for everyone involved. She will tell me what needs to get done because I do not have a green thumb. And then I will ask a lot of questions about how to get that done the best way. All of that to give me information so that I can plan and choose specific tasks to meet the needs of every individual who's coming. We're currently serving 14 different programs across the Tri-Valley, some coming weekly, some coming monthly. There's a lot of people, and we get to know them all, and that's our goal. The night before, I'll pick out what they're going to do. I'll write it down, and oftentimes I'll have in mind which ranchers I'd like to do that task. as well as assign a staff member either from the garden or the visiting programming aides and teachers. And then at the end of our lesson time, I'll describe that to the ranchers, and I want them to inform what they want to do in the garden. We try to keep our ratio at 2-to-1 ranchers to staff as much as possible, or 3-to-1 depending on ability levels. Our goal is that they will feel successful and that we will verbalize their success in the garden through verbal direction, through modeling, and sometimes hand over hand help. Finally, Chrissy Bowie and Brenda Woodsmall from the Livermore Granada transition classes weren't able to join us this evening, but they were able to gather some feedback for me. I'm going to be quick. I think you have a handout in front of you. I'm going to specifically speak to 2 gentlemen who are in the center photographs there. They were a part of a small work crew that came weekly. They worked directly under our farmer in the garden after their lesson time with myself, and these are some things they had to say. Chinua, who spoke very limited English, could say that I like digging holes for the posts and harvesting the fruits and the vegetables. Luis Pedroso, who has since come out and invited his whole family to join us 2 times for our Saturday family work days, said, I like eating the grapes and the tomatoes and the strawberries and the lettuce and the apples, which is true because they never left a single scrap on their snack plate. In closing, I think that these quotes speak pretty much for themselves, but my shameless plug, because we're always looking for volunteers out at the garden, is to invite you guys to come and join us. Either work hand in hand with us alongside a program or just come and observe. You're always welcome. And we want you to see the value behind what we're doing and share it with other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. If you would, you guys are doing really great work. And I know it's under community comment, but given that it's almost like a presentation, if you would come around, we'd just like to acknowledge you, come on, walk around. Thank you very much. Good. Thank you very much. And if you, I believe you
Get
have some
another one,
gentlemen
yes.
from the Knights of Columbus?
Yes, so I'm really excited to let you know that the Knights of Columbus is back with us to give us a gift. For many years, this group has provided support for us financially to help our students that are the most disabled in our district. And I can't even tell you just how grateful we are for the work you do to fundraise and support our students in the school district. So let me introduce to you Wesley Arnold, Jim Gallardi, Ray Miranda, and Anthony Cantarciego. I think I got it right. Did I get it right? Hey!
Okay, the green light. Okay, good evening, Board President, members of the Board, Superintendent Bowers, and the Cabinet. As you mentioned, my name is Wesley Arnold. I have the honor of being the Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus Council this year. And in that role, I have the honor of representing 400 of the most selfless, hardworking men in our community of Livermore. We're known as the Council 4588. I like to refer to them as your Knights of Columbus because of the work we end up doing for the community as a whole. And you've probably seen various things going on where we're working with the homeless or the veterans, other folks that are in need. But one of the key areas that we have as an organization is really, especially in these times, supporting the strengthening of families and the youth, because that really is the future of our country and our society. And as Frank was saying, every year we have many programs that go out and support our youth. We just finished up the free throw competition, very well represented by our youth here this Saturday. They'll be moving on to the district level in February. We have soccer competition in the fall. We have movie nights. We have poster contests to help raise awareness of alcohol abuse and drug addiction, things like that. But with all of the youth activities, one that's really important is making sure we support those as well who have intellectual disabilities. And so the Knights of Columbus, you may know, is a proud supporter of the Special Olympics. We had a tremendous turnout up at a softball tournament in Walnut Creek in the fall. I think we had 25 or 30 guys from Livermore going up over the couple of days helping out with that. Really dedicated. And then this event that we're making a donation from tonight is an annual drive known as the Drive for the Support of Children with Intellectual Disabilities, but it's also known very fondly as the Tootsie Roll Drive. And so probably you've seen the guys out, the yellow jackets on with the red writing, and we don't ask for donations. We basically just have people give them a free Tootsie Roll, and if somebody wants to donate some money, then they do, and we take that, and all of that money goes to the organization that we select each time. And for many years now, it's been our Livermore School District Special Education Group. And so I'm proud to be here again. Our Grand Night was out of town last year, so I got to present, and so I get to actually come back again. I'm very happy to be here. This wouldn't happen without folks like the gentleman behind me and everyone else. I'm just I get to be the spokesperson. So Anthony is our Deputy Grand Night this year. He'll be here next year making the presentation for you. Jim Gallardi is our champion for organizing the event every year. Oh, I got to get the right side. Sorry. So he's our champion for this event. He kind of gets everything rounded up and coordinated and gets the guys out in the various locations that we get permission to go. It's getting harder and harder with time, but that gets underway. And Ray is another one of our long-term supporters in this program. So and our Shutterbug. So with that, I think you'll see us. We've got other major events coming up in the spring. We hope to see you guys out at those. And certainly think of us as your Livermore Knights of Columbus. And I'm very proud to say this year from the Tootsie Roll Drive, we were able to be delivering a check for the special education for $2,375.15.
So we have the large check, and then we have the one that actually Susan can put in the deposit.
All right, I believe we have I have one more speaker card, and it's for Deborah Fields.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and cabinet members. I'm Deborah Fields. I'm with the Livermore Special Needs Parent Group and the Sislone Craft, also with the Livermore Special Needs Parent Group. We both lead the group. We've been around for 6 years, and we serve our parents of our special needs kids. So as you know, we've got about 1,700 special needs kids in the district, and we serve those parents with training, support, resources when needed. We are here tonight because we're excited about a new program we're launching in partnership with the special ed department and with Jackson Avenue School. I'll tell you something about it, but first I want to tell you how it came about. Honestly, tonight I didn't know it was going to be so special ed focused, but I think it's fortuitous and that we're here to talk about this. One of the things that our parents have brought up to us many times is that their kids are often misunderstood, they're excluded, and at worst, they're bullied. And so as we got together this summer, we had a planning session, and we were trying to come up with, well, how do we help that? And so just about a week later, we heard about a program that Pleasanton School District was running. It was actually their special needs parent group who was running it. And what they did is they did an Abilities Awareness Week, where at a particular school site, they would have different activities to build awareness about amongst the neurotypical kids about what it's like to have a disability. And in the many years they've been running the program, when you go onto their campuses as a special needs parent, I can tell you it's almost palpable the difference that program has made in creating a more inclusive environment for our kids. So we decided we've got to do that here. And San Ramon, by the way, also does this. So because they've been doing it so long, we're following their model. It's a model that works. We are very lucky at Jackson Avenue to have a special needs friendly principal. Is she here still? Sherry Johnston. And when we approached her with the idea, she was all over it. So what we collectively decided to do, and I should mention our PTO also is strongly behind this because this is an event that takes a lot of volunteers. And our PTO president at the school also happens to have a special needs kid who also works with our parent group. So it's a great school to kick the event off and ideally prove the model and ideally get the interest of other schools so that it's something that we could do at multiple school sites. So let me just tell you a little bit about how the event will work. We'll have a special assembly with a special guest who actually attended Jackson Avenue. He was a special needs kid, nonverbal, and he has since found his voice not verbally, but through a tool. It's basically just a board that he points at. So now he can communicate. And now that he's communicating, the world inside his brain has become obvious to everyone. And I don't think anyone had any concept of the ideas that were going on in his head. And now I think he's written 6 books. He travels through the United States giving talks about our special needs kids. They're so often overlooked. People don't really... sometimes the expectations are lower, and the beauty in this is that it shows that there's a lot more to our kids than meets the eye. So he's going to come talk to our group through his mother and through some boarding. We're going to have labs that simulate what it's like to have a special need. So those are going to be really interesting. Our kids will actually feel like the frustration. And then we actually are here because we want to invite you to come see the event, come participate. We're reading to our kids special needs books, and we're inviting the board members to come for 30 minutes, sign up for a time slot, come read to our kids, and see the reactions that kids have, and we'll have a dialogue. So it's a 30-minute commitment, and we'd like you to see the beauty of the event. So with that, I thank you, and I will leave you with a quote. The biggest risk of not including our special needs children is that we limit everybody's potential as human beings. I think everyone benefits from this, not just special needs kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could ask you, if you could maybe just leave the times with, yeah.
Yes, thank you. It's on the handout. Thank you.
And we actually received an email about it last week, too.
Cool.
So some of us have already signed up through the Genius sign up or whatever.
Awesome.
And so, and we will go ahead and make sure that our board is included. It should be fun. Did you want to come around? Also, can we shake your hands? They do a tremendous work and came to our Parent Club Information Council also, which was very well received by all of our parents. It wasn't just special needs parents who wanted to learn and participate and help. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, Chuck. You're going to be up here. All right, we're going to move to section 8B, and this is our formal correspondence to the Board of Education. And we acknowledge it if it's received by the board or in the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting. Formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will be acknowledged at our following meeting. Electronic communication received via the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website, accessing the formal written correspondence to the Board of Education link filling out all the fields, completed and verified. That'll be treated as formal written correspondence. So with all that being said, to define it, I would ask our clerk, Mr. Rogie, if we have any correspondence, and if so, if you'd summarize for us.
Yes, Mr. President, we have one from Mary Millay, formal board correspondence received via email. Ms. Millay wrote to the board to invite them to attend the Night to Shine Tri-Valley 2019 on Friday, February 8th. This event is the prom for young people with special needs. Ms. Millay will provided a link to sign up to attend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move into 9, and this is our information discussion items. And I'd ask Superintendent Bowers if you'd introduce our first item, please.
Certainly. And since special education has been on everyone's mind for most of this meeting, we will actually re-invite Mr. Frank Salvaggio, our proud Director of Special Education, forward. He will be presenting an update about our special education programs. It's an overview, and this is for information only.
And to my right, oh, I am on, thank you. And to my right is Jenny Cordes, our Assistant Director of Special Education, President Bueno, members of the board, Dr. Bowers, Executive Cabinet. For the record, my name is Frank Salvaggio, and I'm the Special Ed Director for Livermore. I want to start tonight just for a second because you haven't had a chance to know me that well through some of the reasons why I chose special education. I just want to take 30 seconds to do that. When I was 18 years old, my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he was 19, I was 18. That experience changed my life. I was heading towards a business career, much like my father, but watching my brother become marginalized in society and to be pointed at and shunned and laughed at really had a tremendous effect on my life. And I think from that point on, I knew that my vocation in life was to help those that didn't have a voice to be a voice for them. And so this is much more than a job for me. This is a vocation. And I wanted you to know that, just so you know my history a little bit. I know Jenny also wanted to say just a brief thing as well.
My story's not as intriguing. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. This is my 30th year working in special education. I've had the opportunity to work as a speech-language pathologist, a special day class teacher, a program specialist, and now Assistant Director of Special Education.
So let us share a little bit about special education with you. The first thing I want to let you know is that, I know that you know a lot of this information, but we just want to have a reminder for the audience as well that the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, is federal law. It requires school districts to provide a free and appropriate public education for students with disabilities.
FAPE, which FAPE means special education and related services must be provided as outlined on a student's IEP or individualized education program. IDEA specifies that students must be educated in the least restrictive environment, which means to the maximum extent possible educated with their age-typical peers. IDEA covers students birth to age 22. Livermore School District, we start working with students the day after they turn 3 through the age of 22.
Quickly, I forgot, I wanted to mention the program specialists. If you program specialists want to just stand up real quick and give them a hand. Mary Grace, Vicki Phillips, Heather Pasaros, and Miss Laura Barbera. We're very grateful for you, Denise, as well. So thank you all.
Livermore School District is part of the Tri-Valley SELPA, which is a collaborative of 5 districts, Dublin, Livermore, Pleasanton, Mountain House, Sonoma Glen, and Alameda County Office of Education.
And I want to just highlight Trustee Wenzel, who's just done an amazing job for us. He advocates for Livermore at the meetings all the time and has just been a great support for us. Want to let you know that there's currently 6.5 million students that qualify for special education in the United States. There are 774,665 that were qualified in California from 2017 to 18. And currently in LVJUSD, we have 2,005 students that have qualified for special education. I put on here a list so you just have a breakdown of where our students are at as far as qualification. And you can see on the first slide, I'll let you read that. I don't need to go over it. And then on the second slide, I just want to highlight two areas that you just, so you're aware of, that specific learning disability. Those with learning disabilities make up 738 students of our 2,000 students in special education as well. And then speech and language impairment makes up 550. So they're the majority of our students that qualify for special education are in those two categories. Also want to let you know that this is the breakdown. Again, I don't need to read it, just so you're aware of how our students per grade level are qualifying for special education. And then again, you're aware that special education funding is really provided, although should be a lot more, by the federal government, as well as the state and our general fund, which supports us substantially as well.
In Livermore, we have a range of services for our students with special needs. We have resource programs where students are provided support either within the classroom or in a pull-out session. We also have full inclusion where the students are in a general education classroom 100% of the time with support from a paraprofessional. We have mild to moderate and moderate severe special day classes. We also have counseling enriched special day classes for students with mental health needs. We have a variety of multiple related service providers, which I'll go over in just a moment. And we have students placed in non-public schools, as well as a few in residential placements. In regards to related service providers, we have school psychologists, speech-language pathologists, deaf and hard of hearing specialists, vision specialists, behavior analysts, adapted physical education teachers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication specialists.
I briefly just want to make a distinction, and this again is for the audience as well, between Section 504 and IEP. Students on a Section 504 plan are in general education 100% of their time. They've been recognized with a disability or an impairment, but they do not receive specially designed or academic instruction by a special education teacher. And so you can't be on a Section 504 plan and be on an IEP. You have to be on one or the other. And almost all rights of students in special education are also provided for students on Section 504 plans. Exciting news I want to share with you, and that is that on our last state reading and math scores, we found that special education students increased by over 7% from 2017 to 2018. So reason to celebrate. Have a long way to go, but we still need to celebrate when good things happen. And I also want to mention that we've started some new co-teaching classes. And I want to, before I talk about a little data on those, I want to just have Geeti stand. And is Chloe here? Or did she have to? She had to leave. Chloe's the general education teacher for this co-teaching class. And then Christy Barcelona, who's the special education teacher for the 5th grade co-teaching class at Arreo Seco. And I can't wait to share some of the data that we're finding with you. But before I do that, I want to mention a couple of student comments. Oh yeah, clap for them. Absolutely. Christy is so passionate about co-teaching, and she's been a great support for making this happen. A couple of student comments. Just so you know, co-teaching in elementary school, what we've done is we've taken a full-time special ed teacher and a full-time general ed teacher with some aid support, and we've put them in one classroom together. The special ed students are actually students that are in special day classes, not in resource. So we've combined these two groups. And let me share a few comments that were made. One student in general education said, "This class is awesome. I get the help and support that I need. Last year I was struggling in math and reading, and this class has made me a more confident student." Oh, I guess it would help if I keep going here. The next one is by a special education student. "I like everything about this class. I like not having to leave the class to get help like last year when I was in resource. Now I get more help in the class, and I like that." A parent comment, "This year my special needs daughter is in the co-taught 5th grade class." Did I get that right? Okay, good. Thank you. Keep me on track, please. This year, my special needs daughter is in the co-taught 5th grade class at Arroyo Seco. Without a doubt, it has been her best year in elementary school. And one more parent comment from a general education parent. It shouldn't say student there, it should say parent. Sorry about that. My daughter is on the lower end of reading, and this class is giving her the confidence she has needed to help her. I also love the different connections she has made with each adult in the classroom. So, little data. For our 4th grade co-teaching class over at Altamont Creek, what we know is that the students in special education started the year with their scores in math. Is that right? Yeah, in math being at the third grade level. Currently, they've gone up on an average where these students are now performing at the 4th grade level, which is grade level curriculum in math. And I think that's significant to understand because you look at our special day classes, what we're finding is kids are not at grade level in these courses. So now we have special ed students that are in SDC classes that are now working with the grade level curriculum, which I think is exciting. Teachers report students are identified as gifted, teachers report that students identified as gifted and talented are able to receive higher levels of challenging instruction due to the structure of the class and the adult support. And some of our GATE student parents were skeptical of that at first. Would this work? And actually the opposite is going on. Because you have the adult support, you can now differentiate a lot more in the classroom to support these students. So very exciting about that as well. Combining students in special day class with general education peers has resulted in significant decreases in behavior disruptions by both groups, according to the teachers there. Also, with the fifth grade class that Christy is leading, students in special education have had on average a 9-month increase in reading growth since the start of the year. General education students are also increasing in their reading levels. That's significant. Next, general education students have scored an average of 89% on each of the 4-unit 5th grade math tests taken. And then special education students scored on average, an average of 74% on the same 5th grade math tests. Now, I want to make, yeah, we should clap for that. I want to make sure that the significance of that is understood with the fact that students, if you look at the CASP scores in both of these areas that are in special day classes, are scoring much lower than their peers. And the fact that these students are now accessing and actually scoring at the grade level on some of these tests, I think is truly remarkable.
I have some additional accomplishments I'd like to share with you. One is this year we have created a class focusing on students with autism that have some behavior challenges. There have been some challenges with the class, but it's been an opportunity to learn as we go. We have hired many registered behavior technicians, and those have been working with both general education and special education students to help them with their behavioral challenges. We've increased therapeutic support in the district. We also created a new communication intensive class for some of our students with the most significant communication disorders. This class focuses on students with deficits in functional communication that are the primary barriers to their academic success, with the consistent use of visual supports and augmentative alternative communication, both high and low tech. We focus on the development of independent functional skills, and parents report that their students are flourishing. I have one quick quote to read from a parent that was sent to the teacher. I hope you are off to a great start. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I love John's teacher and I am super happy with his class. He is so incredibly happy every day when he comes home. I've never seen him like this. It makes me so happy. Also, is there any way to add the names of his teachers and peers into his talker? I would love to have conversations with him about his friends at school. Thank you. Other accomplishments, as we have increased professional learning support for special education teachers and paraprofessionals. We do 3 trainings every month with new staff and with the secondary and elementary. We provide training for special education teachers and paraprofessionals as well in structured literacy strategies. Future plans, we are looking to increase intervention opportunities for students with dyslexia by redesigning some of our mild to moderate programs. We're looking to increase opportunities for high-functioning students with autism and restructuring how the resource program operates. And we are looking to increase co-teaching at the elementary level without having to increase any allocation.
Which I know would be good news for Susan to hear. So put that in there partly for you. Challenges. We do have a few challenges that I want to let you know about, and they're very important. We have a national shortage of special education teachers and speech and language pathologists, and it's creating a strain on us in trying to fill these positions. We're relying on a lot of contractor help for speech and language, and it just continues to be a struggle for us. Next is finding solutions to better support students with severe mental health and behavior challenges. This has been a pretty dramatic increase this year in what we're needing to do to provide supports for them, and sometimes we can't, which is that very last bullet there, that no non-public schools are in the Tri-Valley. I'm going to mention about federal funding in a second, but no non-public schools are in the Tri-Valley, which causes families that can't support we're not able to support their students in our school district to have to travel at least an hour, sometimes up to 2.5 hours one way to get to these non-public schools. So we really need to think about how we could better support these kids. And I just wanted to mention I mentioned earlier about the federal funding shortage. The only thing I want to say is the federal government is supporting us about 16% of what they promised. This has put a tremendous strain on school districts to be able to try to make up the difference. And I'm hoping, I know Trustee Wenzel's been a great advocate of this as well by talking to congressmen, about others, about if we're ever going to get to a point of really doing what we need in special education, we need the federal government to step up and support what they originally promised when they passed the laws. Do we have time for the video, or are we out of time?
We have time.
Okay, because I know we've taken a while. Okay, we're going to show you a video. I hope you'll enjoy it.
We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold, to be brave.
My name is Heather Pizarros.
Hello, my name is Louise Wojcicki.
I am Adriana Schultz, and I'm the teacher of one of our special day programs here in Livermore for TK to first grade students. And this is one of my parents.
So my name is Julie Fox, and my son Zakiah is in Mrs. Schultz's class.
I like to run this classroom in a very similar way to a general education program. I feel like the students in this program need to be given the exact same opportunities that all students are given. So that's been a goal of mine in designing this program is to make sure that they have the same learning opportunities as everybody else. This program is really built around the zones of regulation curriculum, which pretty much just teaches kids about their emotions, and it teaches them first to categorize their feelings into 4 different zones, and then teaches them different strategies to use to keep themselves in the green zone, the most ideal zone. Then you'll see them walking around and telling everybody like, oh, like, you're in the blue zone, what do you need to get back to the green zone? We do a lot of repetitive teaching. As Larisse mentioned, we do a lot of routine work, so that way students know what's expected of them, but yet know that there are different they're going to be learning each day.
On our family, it's been life-changing, actually. The difference between when school would start, before heading to school was a nightmare, he didn't want to go. There was a lot of stress on our family before school, and then also after school. He had so much anxiety.
Now you open the door on the van and he is smiling and he's happy and he is ready to
He literally can't wait to get to school, which is a complete switch.
I'm super grateful for the program because it's really given my boys a good jump. I feel like they are able to be with their typical peers. They are able to function in a greater society that doesn't learn like them, that might not understand them.
I've been most pleased with the fact that I'm actually witnessing Zeke make being successful. He just wasn't, he wasn't finding anything really to be happy about or to feel like he was learning. He didn't really seem to want to go to school.
In addition to the social and emotional learning that they do in the classroom, they are academically challenged, which is amazing.
So a lot of people in special ed found teaching and then found special ed, and I was the complete opposite. I found special ed and then found teaching.
I was able to see my mother working with students with special needs, and so in seeing her love for it, I also fell in love with it. So I just always knew this is where I was meant to be.
It's so hard sometimes to be the parent of a child with special needs, and there's so many emotions that go with it and expectations that you're not sure are going to be reached. And for me, the fact that when he came to this program is when I started seeing who he really was and who he really could be, is what I would say to any parent, that you just have to try it.
What I would say is if you're not getting, what you believe is best for the kiddo, don't be afraid to be creative.
Now I can say I think he's actually going to be okay. I would say that to a parent, that do it. Get them in, because he's loved here and he's learning, and like I said before, I do not have to leave worrying about whether I'm going to have to come get him or whether he's miserable. I leave confident. For my own work, I leave confident knowing that he's going to be fine during the day. Being in the same classroom for such a long time, you develop friendships with the teachers and their aides, and they know your kids. So it's a broad community, but it's a very courageous and supportive one.
So I think what the school district starting this program tells me is that they used to, or what it looked like before was, we have these boxes and we're gonna look at this kid and see which box they can fit into. And I feel like the whole design of this program was, okay, we have these kids and none of these boxes work for them. So what do they need? And let's build them their own box.
One size doesn't fit all, and if you continue to come up against a wall, you just have to find a new way to teach, which I think is what a lot of our teachers in our district do. Is we're here to work with students to help them reach their fullest potential.
I would just say that it's given us hope. It's given me as a parent hope that my child is going to be okay, and that schooling is not going to be the worst thing he has to encounter. It's going to be one of the best things he has to encounter. And we needed some hope, and that's what this program brought to us.
We are love. We are one. We are love.
So that was shared with our parent group, and I just wanted to commend you for doing that and thank the parents who put their stories out and shared. I've seen it 4 or 5 times. I still tear up. I can't help it. But I also think that our HR folks, our Human Resources Department, was interested in using some of that as part of our recruitment. It is difficult to attract and retain the best in special education. It's a highly rewarding, but also very challenging, has specific challenges, and it can be emotionally draining, and there's lots of things that come along with it. And so my sense is this was done more to bring some of the parents along and to promote the programs themselves and the services for kids and highlight that. But I actually think from the other standpoint, if you are a teacher and you're thinking, where do I want to work and what do I want to be part of building something like this, that it would be a great recruitment video as well.
Great, thank you very much. We do have a couple questions, and we're going to start tonight with Mrs. Prusso.
First of all, I just wanted to congratulate Frank and Jenny for coming up with such a great program, and all of the whole community, the special education community, the teachers and the parents and the aides. I just think it's amazing. And I'm very impressed with the co-teaching classes. And I think we heard a lot from the parents of the students with the special education needs, but I think too, as a parent of general education students, that I would love to see something like this. I think it teaches those general ed students probably more than they could ever learn. Sorry, I'm going to get, including human kindness and compassion. And I think it's just really incredible. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that and for just making the most of what we can get for you. And I think that's all I have. I don't really have a question for you right now, but I just wanted to say that I'm very impressed and just grateful for the people in here tonight and the community of people who are so supportive of this special needs of these children. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Prusso. And we're going to go Mrs. White.
Is the co-teaching done at all schools, or is it moving through the district, having started someplace?
So we do have co-teaching at middle school, and at Granada they do co-teaching as well. What we've done in the elementary school is a little different. I would say we've added some more supports in there. And I think as a result of how we strategize that, we're seeing these great gains. So right now, those are the two we do for elementary, and then we have them at the middle school and we have them at the high school.
Well, I know Christensen won an award.
Christensen won an award
effort.
last year, right. And Mendenhall also does co-teaching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. White. Mr. Wenzel.
Well, I think Emily said it best. I worked with the Special Olympics for 8 years, polar plunge. It is such a great thing that people do in helping special needs children. You get a lot out of it, but you have to have a skill set. And the patients I've seen and the successes are so wonderful. Unfortunately, the federal government, and for people that don't know, the IDEA program came out over 30 years ago, and the federal government never met their responsibility in the funding of it. They implanted this issue, and they were supposed to come up with 30%. That's maybe it's 40, and they've never. The best they did was 17%. So about 4 years ago, we had a program here. We made phone calls. Congressman Swalwell was here, and I contacted not only him but 2 other congressmen in the area. And we talked about it, and unfortunately, politics, the way they are, the best answer I got was, well, we've utilized our funding in other areas, which was so frustrating. And what you said tonight, 16%, I thought that was actually high, but if that's the number, at least the highest day was 17, so, at least we're getting that. But it's still a far cry for what the costs are to do these types of programs. And I thank you, and I thank the people in the audience and all the people and the parents having, the patience. And, we as a board will keep on trying to see if we can get that additional funding. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. I'd just like to, Mr. Savaggio, Ms. Cordes, you guys do great work. I mean, this is challenging. And the work that we're doing, the inclusion, it's phenomenal. But, for those who might be listening, if you don't fund something, it's impossible to do your best work. And to me, I mean, Mr. Wenzel, he's involved in SELPA, and Mr. Rogi was in it for quite a long time. To me, to sit back and wait on the federal government is, it's an impossibility. And if it's 30 years or if it's 10 years, it's not going to happen. To me, we have a new governor. He's a compassionate governor. That's what he campaigned on. And to me, that's what I would appeal to. You have a governor who says, I'm a compassionate person, and he's into social causes, and he's committed to special needs children. And to me, that's where we go. California's the leader in this country. 1 in 8 kids that are educated in this country are educated by California schools. And to me, that's where we go. If the California governor can't make this happen, then he's not meeting his commitment. And to me, that has to be the target. Publicly, Gavin Newsom needs to make sure that this thing happens. And that's what I would ask. Because we have great people doing great work for just tremendous kids in a community effort. And if we can't do that as a society, with the 5th biggest economy in the world as a state, surpassing Great Britain, then we are failing as adults, and we're failing children. And to me, that is just unfathomable. So To me, that'd be my appeal. Thank you. You're doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do as well.
Mr. Bueno, I hope you'll join us March 12th in Sacramento to lobby for such things.
Thanks. Could you introduce our next item, please?
So for our next item, I'm catching my space here. Oh, this is a public hearing. So we'll ask Dr. Kevin Greer to come forward. He is our Director of Curriculum and Special Projects to come forward. He will be presenting some background information regarding the upcoming English Language Arts, English Language Development Instructional Materials adoption. And this would be background prior to the board president formally opening a public hearing, taking comment, and then closing.
All right. Got to put my readers on. I've hit that age. Sorry.
Your audience just left, Dr. Greer. I hope you don't take it personally. I think they were. There's some people
Mr.
saying.
Benoit is still there, so that's good. We're okay. All right. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Bowers, and cabinet members. We're here tonight to present the process and outcomes of the recent 612 English Language Arts, English Language Development Instructional Materials adoption.
Good evening. I just have to say this has been an incredible meeting. I'm going to be leaving tonight with a really full heart. We began this journey in March 2018 by holding an instructional materials fair in which we invited 3 publishers, 2 that can support 6 through 12 and 1 that can support 6 through 8 only, to display their English language arts and English language development materials for all 6 through 12 teachers in our district to briefly review and offer input about what they saw. We invited only the 6 through 8 publishers that are adopted by the California Department of Education. And while the California Department of Education does not adopt for 9 through 12, we invited those publishers approved for 6 through 8 that also offer materials for 9 through 12. We formed a pilot adoption committee and had the key members listen to 1.5-hour presentations from each of the publishers. The pilot adoption committee decided to pilot Amplify Education and Study Sync for middle school and California Collections and Study Sync for high school. For the pilot, we decided to have half of the pilot adoption committee start with one program and the other half start with the other program. In most cases, that equated to every middle, K through 8, and high school campus having both programs running at the same time. After 5 weeks, the teachers switched programs, and they completed a survey at the end of each of the 2 pilots.
This slide reflects the makeup of the pilot adoption committee. We wanted to ensure that most sites had at least 1 representative per grade level. This allowed for a good amount of feedback per grade level as well. In addition, we made sure to include a special education representative and an English learner representative on the committee. LEA leadership was invited to participate in the meetings and the process. However, they were not allowed to advocate for a program at the end of the process, since that was limited to those who actually piloted the program in the classroom. Here's just a quick glance of how that model for the pilot adoption committee turned out. You can see the patterns that we discussed previously as per grade levels at each of the school sites in our district.
Before we started to look at the ELA and ELD materials, we framed some essential questions to help guide the decision-making. First and foremost, any 6 through 12 program had to meet the needs of all students, and all means all: general education, special education, GATE, English learners, etc.
After the pilot adoption committee teachers completed the pilots, they determined, using an advocacy model, that their preference was for Study Sync at grades 6 through 12. The decision was heavily in favor of Study Sync at each grade span as well. Grades 6 through 8 made their determination using an advocacy model separately from grades 9 through 12 as well.
As part of that culminating activity with all the piloting teachers, we asked the members of the pilot adoption committee to use that advocacy protocol in which each member was asked to advocate for one set of the materials and to offer a reason as to why they chose that publisher. Here are a few of the reasons given from those who advocated for Study Sync. So I don't need to read it to you, but you can see that the advantages are exactly what you would want out of a good ELA, ELD adoption. We also asked the pilot adoption committee members to let us know some things that they feel they need to have in order to have a successful implementation of the materials selected. So you can see they'd like some professional development over the summer so they can hit the ground running in August. Some PD before the school year starts, the August PD day. To develop a curriculum alignment committee. So if they're recommending the same material publisher in 6 through 8 and 9 through 12, that gives us the opportunity to really articulate grade to grade with the same materials, which is wonderful. Unit planning time during the school year, and access to those online materials, because these programs now are so much different than they used to be. They're not a textbook anymore. It's online components, some written components. So they'd like to explore all that over the summer, and some professional development for all those digital components. And of course, we keep increasing access to the devices that you need for digital components. So that as well. You can.
One of the other additional benefits we had in meeting with a publisher a little bit was that we're also exploring the opportunity, if possible, and if adopted by the Board of Education, to consider using some of the Wednesdays before the school year gets out, in which to have language arts teachers be able to begin to preview the materials that they may see, and then have something in the summer like they've asked for, and something right as school starts up as well. So we're kind of hopeful that that might be a possibility. So currently the Study Sync materials are available for parents and community members to review in the district office's Curriculum and Special Projects Department. We have a sample here of the 9th grade for the teacher's materials that was there just as an idea of what the teacher might get for it.
There's also a really nice overview, if you do get a chance to look, that has the thematic unit. The adoption is done by a thematic unit type, so 4 units per year by theme. And I notice as I go through it, a lot of the themes tie very nicely to our Choose Love curriculum, which is great.
So at this time, we would ask the superintendent to ask the board to open a public hearing on the adoption.
Mr. Rogie?
I'm going to ask you a very broad question, but what are your expectations using these materials?
Well, as a high school English teacher, the materials we had previously were adopted before I became an English teacher in the district. So they're the older style. They're a textbook. The kids get a textbook off the shelf, and it has changed so much. Just how fast the digital literacy is changing. It's so exciting. I used to go home and plan every night, what am I going to pull into this? And looking all over the internet and going to my own library, what poem can I pull that's of the same theme? And the access now through these materials to all of that, and so much to choose from and to vary, and the supports to students that need differentiation for EL. Fantastic. You can click on a button and have materials in different languages. You can click on a button and have supports provided to students at different lexile levels, and it's incredible. If I could teach again with those materials, it'd just be such a different way of teaching now,
And I would add that we do expect more engaged students and higher achievement from our students as a result of these materials.
Yeah, I was thinking more engaged teacher, but yes,
and
you're right. More engaged.
Right, and we did get to see that when we went out to see piloting, we would go together, and what we saw were really students that were truly into this, more than I think I would. I'm a math guy, so the more I would think about an English person getting all excited over it, but it was really fun to watch them so engaged in it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. Mrs. Prusso?
Yeah, I think I have just a little bit more. I'm just curious about, is there a textbook? I mean, tell me what the digital, like, what are the devices? Like, how are they using it in class?
So it's a combination of online material and hard copy material. So for each of the themes in the units, there is a book. So for each year, students will have 4 of these. So this is an example of one of the units from 9th grade with the theme of empathy. And so there are hardbound materials. The teacher has choices, right, of what they can take from online, what they can take from the hard copy. Each year and for each unit, there's also focus on a full novel. So for example, the novel for empathy is To Kill a Mockingbird. So they're still reading a hard copy novel as well, but they're bringing in pieces from online to support that theme of empathy. So the students would not be every single day in front of a computer.
Yeah,
It's a mixed bag of maybe one day they're on a computer, another day they're busy writing essays, that type of thing.
Okay.
Or reading.
So I think we can
I like it. I
describe
think
it
it's
as
great.
kind of hybrid materials and no anthology, as kind of the traditional approach was to have one big anthology
Yeah.
book.
They won't be lugging big books around.
I think it's great. I think we got to get there, right? That's where we all,
It's
everywhere
very
else is
exciting.
going.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prusso. And we're going to revisit with Mr. Rogie.
Since we have a digital side to this, is that going to be updated as the years go by and deviate from the written copy? I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but I'm just kind of curious or is it going to be a static until we up our subscription?
So they're constantly updating their online library, their lessons, their what they call their blasts, which are like mini lessons that get sent out on those themes. Every time you log on, there's more materials in there. So it's in a constant state of being updated. And that's part of your purchase is it will be constantly updated.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. And with no further comments or questions from the board, I would, as president, open the public hearing. I'm looking to check, and I don't have any speaker cards. So in the absence of any public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you very much for the item.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you too for being so ahead with this. And we take it for granted now that everybody agreed, but there were times when people would argue between the schools and one school would want this publisher and that, and we really can't take it for granted. It was a lot of work that went into it, and it's so early that we can actually get the materials in so they can begin to learn and experiment. There were times when they were coming in at the end of August, and that's not ideal. So we definitely appreciate both of your leadership in that. Thank you.
And if you've introduced not.
So for our next item, and I think President Bueno had kind of alluded to the governor's budget a little bit about some of his priorities. And so we actually have our assistant superintendent right hot off the press pretty much. She attended workshops today, as did 3 of our trustees and others from staff, to hear about our governor's proposed 2019-2020 budget. So she'll be giving for information items, Susan Kinder.
So good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers. So as Ms. Sorrell had mentioned earlier, there were quite a few of us in attendance today at the school services conference. I don't know, Mr. Biondi, can you get me my, thank you. So we had board members, we had union leadership and staff attend this morning. So it's been a long day because that was a morning session and we had to get to Sacramento in the rain. So anyway, tonight I'm going to give you just a Cliff Notes version of the proposed budget, and then we'll get into more details when we have our budget workshop on Thursday. So as you've heard, we have a new governor. Governor Newsom is inheriting a very nice financial situation at the state level, and so his proposed budget reflects the robust economic growth that we are having, but there is slowing in the Proposition 98 growth. He is continuing to, in Governor Brown's footsteps, to add to the state's rainy day fund, and he'll be adding $1.8 billion to that rainy day fund for now making it a total of $15.3 billion. This is now the 5th year of the local control funding formula, and he is fully funding the estimated cost of living adjustment, or COLA, at 3.46. And when we did the multi-year projection at first interim, we were estimating that to be 2.57. So that is an increase, and so that we were happy with that, although of course we'd always like it to be higher. There are no new one-time funds. That's we have been kind of, I don't know, assuming that we will continue to get one-time funds because that was one of Governor Brown's things, but there are no one-time funds in this budget. But a nice change is that this governor is acknowledging that we have an issue with our STRS and PERS liability, or pension liability, and he's using $3 billion outside of Proposition 98, so that doesn't mean it's taken away from our Proposition 98 money, and he's using that to buy down the liability. And so what that does is it's projected to reduce the increase in the STRS rate from what we were projecting was 18.13 for next year, and it will be reduced to 17.1. And then in 2021, it would be 19.1, would be reduced to 18.1. And then in future years, it would be 0.5% lower than what was projected. So although we will still have increases in STRS and PERS, it's not as dramatic. There was talk at one point that he was also putting some aside for PERS, but I believe it's only for the state's liability, so it's not impacting our rates as far as we know right now. And then the other piece was special education. That's been a big topic tonight. He is putting some money towards special education for expanded services and school readiness. It's not the equalization of the AB 602 that we would like, but at least he is acknowledging that special education does need additional funding. And so we are waiting for more details to come out on that. So if you look at our Cal STRS and Cal PERS rates, here I'm just showing the change from what we had originally projected to what they are now projecting. And so it's saving us approximately $670,000 in 1920, and then an additional $660,000 in 2021. So although they're still going up, they're not as dramatic. So next steps, this is just the beginning. This is just a proposal. Now all the real work will start with the legislature, and they will hash out details of what the budget will actually come out to. And then we'll wait for the May revise. That will give us more information. And as I stated before, we'll have a budget workshop this Thursday to look at our budget priorities. And we'll include these new assumptions when we do the second interim report. So you'll see our outer years looking a little bit better than they did at first interim. And we are also starting to plan for our local control accountability plan. So we look forward to the May revise, and hopefully there may be even more dollars in there. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. This, as I stated, this is just the Cliff Notes version because we just went this morning, so it's pretty hot off the press.
Thank you very much. We'll begin with Mrs. White.
Well, for me, the bottom line is if we roll over the program and compare our expenses with just repeating what we did this year, how different is that from the money we'll get? Whether we have a negative even, or I doubt extra. But, that's, to me, and the way I think about numbers, that's the way I go about it. So I hope you come up with that sort of a number pretty soon so we can know what our target change is going to be.
Yes, we plan to bring something on Thursday.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Go to Mr. Rogie.
Yeah, a clarification on the PERS and STRS funding. I see it's $3 billion one time, and then the bottom chart on page 2, the crossouts, was that because of the additional funding from the state?
So the crossouts, so that was prior to that 3 billion funding. So
Okay.
the 3 billion in funding would buy down those rates. And so what we were expecting was an 18.13% STRS rate for 1920, and they're stating now that it would be closer to 17.1%.
So that's not hitting our budget. That's in addition to, the state's just paying that portion of it?
No, that's reducing so this is the amount that we have to pay. This is the employer portion that we have to
Right.
pay, and so it reduces our expenses.
But they're not sending us money to reduce that
It's
expense?
not revenue coming to us, but it's
Right.
reducing expenses.
Okay, great,
Right.
thank you.
And recall, these pension amounts are set in legislation, so they're mandated in statute, and they are not necessarily unique to Livermore. This is something that we're all sharing throughout the state for the state's long-term liability. So just kind of, because we get questions about that sometimes. So we don't have any control, and they weren't really tied necessarily to the economy and the economic growth and how well some of the investments went. They were set pre that happening. And so over the years, that's why the rainy day fund has become quite plentiful. And I think that's why the new governor is saying some of that, you know, it is kind of raining when school districts are going to start to see cuts against programs for children and can't sustain in the economy that President Bueno was talking about. So it's not that it's storming yet, but there's some rain out there, and this would be a perfect example of him freeing up some of the funds for this legislative mandate that really wasn't tied to reality anymore.
Thank you. Mr. Wenzel.
I don't know if you could answer this. So I'm looking at this $3 billion one-time monies that could have gone to the districts, but he decided not to. So I'm just kind of thinking, okay, let's say he did do that and was able to allocate throughout the state. What is there a way to determine what that amount would have been versus the 670, what we're going to be saving in this?
Well, first of all, the 3 billion, it's outside of Prop 98, so it's not money that we would normally get. So, but if he decided that instead of putting it towards this liability, that he was just going to give it to districts, he's only actually doing 270 million the first year, and then I think it's 300 million the next year. It's actually over a 3-year period, so he's not giving all 3 billion out in one time.
Mm-hmm.
But Emily and I were talking in the car about how to determine, usually $1 billion at the state level translates to almost $1 million for us. But it all depends on how they decided to distribute it, right? If they distribute it by ADA, it may be different than if they distribute it by unduplicated students or some other way. So it would all just depend on how he wanted to distribute it out. But we are thankful that he is acknowledging that that is an issue.
I think it's great, and the last governor did one-time monies and set up, guidelines and formulas. But I just wanted to see how this kind of, balanced out. Yes, and anything coming from the state extra is great. So thank you.
And also, I think that it's important to stress how critical is it it's non-Prop 98, because there were times when prior governor would give funding, but then the funding would come in this way one time, and then it would go away either through the STRS, and then it would also subtract from the amount that the Prop 98 guarantee that was what we were supposed to get. So that it was a swap out. And sometimes that would happen. Federal funding would come in and it would be earmarked for technology or something. And then as soon as that money came in, it would go to the state and then to us. And then that would count toward the Prop 98 guarantee. So we really wouldn't realize gain. But it would be misleading because then people would say, oh, the federal government just gave you funding. It's like, well, they did, but then it was taken away. So there's been a lot of education to Gavin Newsom about this. And so I think he's acknowledging it. And one of the things that we're hopeful about is he's one of the few governors who actually has been at a local level. So he's been to local school board meetings in his other roles as mayor. He understands some of the local pressures at cities and council, where some governors have come through other means. They've worked only at state level. So the idea of helping us out at the local level is a nice change.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Look forward to Thursday. We're going to move into our action items. So if you'd introduce 10-1, please.
Certainly. So now I see our bond folks coming up, or we see Mr. Tim Bazanowski. He's our bond program director, and joining him is one of our project architects, and they will be coming up to present to you. And this would be an action item. Ideally, it'll be an update, and then hopefully an authorization to bid, and for the very exciting project, Livermore High School Athletics and Aquatics, which has been a long time coming in our community, but well worth the wait.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers, President Bueno, members of the board and cabinet. We are very excited to present this update this evening for the Livermore High School Athletics and Aquatics Complex project, including the authorization to bid the project. I say we because I'm joined this evening by Mr. Irwin Lee, the principal in charge of our project from HED Architects. Irwin and I have known each other for more than 15 years when we built a ground-up middle school together a long time ago, and Irwin has been in the industry for decades. A Cal and Harvard University educated architect, has brought some very spectacular projects to the Bay Area, notably including locations like Palo Alto High School Gymnasium, the Newark Memorial High School Gymnasium. Other projects included Fallon Middle School in Dublin, and even earlier than that, I think perhaps when I first met Irwin, he was an architect for the entire Pleasanton Middle School. And so Irwin has been in the industry a long, long time. I'm certainly grateful to be working with him, and I think we're very grateful to have him as part of our project. We have a fair bit of material to cover tonight, and we're going to look at a variety of topics, so let's go ahead and get started. Tonight's topics include some project information that we'll share with you, really kind of a little refresher of what's included in the project, a recap of what's been done so far in background. Then we're going to move to some construction phasing plans that are going to illustrate to you the various stages of construction that we planned and how we're going to logistically get from beginning to end of the project. We're going to take a detailed look at the building itself, the complex, and how it fits into the campus and the various features of the buildings. I want to spend a little time with you tonight reviewing cost and schedule and budgets, bid process that we go through. Bid alternates is a concept that I want to introduce to you this evening and to the process. We've talked a little bit about it in previous meetings, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail. And then, of course, some schedule and project timelines for executing the project. And then, of course, where do we go next? What are our next steps? And then ending, of course, as we always do, with the superintendent's recommendations. Here's all the information, the data about the project, if you will. Really recall that we're replacing both the main and the practice gymnasiums at Livermore High School. When we began the planning process, we'll chat about that more in a second, we identified, and as we all knew, that the girls' and the boys' locker rooms were in separate buildings. So if we replaced the main gym, what would we do with the girls' locker room in the practice gym? We looked at the practice gymnasium, did some structural assessments, and determined that it would be a good thing to replace it as well. And so this new facility, recall, is a two-story facility, has all these different parts and pieces and components to it, really all the program features that Livermore High School needs to conduct a very vibrant physical education and athletics program. We're changing the swimming pool at Livermore High School, as we started at Granada High School. Both of the pools are identical in size and shape, 38 meters by 25 yards wide. The swimming pool has an equipment building that goes with it, as well as changing facilities for outside users or visiting swim teams. We're improving the parking and drop-off facilities at the campus, on-site predominantly in the front of the new building. We'll talk about the off-site drop-off a little bit more in a future slide. And then we're also, by replacing both of the gymnasium buildings at the campus, we're capitalizing on our ability to create a potential area on the campus, acreage-wise, land-wise, for a future classroom building. Remember that Livermore High School is a small campus in size, less than 30 acres, and so area is at a premium, and anytime that we can capitalize on going multi-story and utilizing that land area better, we always look to do that. A little bit of information on, again, background and the planning and design and permitting process that we've conducted thus far, and with steps that we'll move to going into the immediate future. Recall that our process began more than a year ago with what we call the charrette, where Mr. Lee and his team conducted a charrette process with a group of stakeholders and users. I believe, if I recall correctly, there were more than 25 different users in the Career Center at Livermore High School, made up of all the different stakeholders. And that's where we talked about a one-story versus a two-story building, and replacing the main gym or replacing both gyms. And it was also where the first conversation came up about the currently allocated amount of money may not do all of the program features that we wanted to do. And so that when we moved into the schematic design process out of that charrette process, and we brought to the board in October of 2017 the schematic design, where you approved it and also identified with us that we needed to add that funding to complete the project as we had designed it schematically. And so at that time, the budget of between $50 and $53 million was approved. From there, we went into project design and beginning into the hard design of the project. The schematic design was very program rich, very full. All of the pieces that the campus and the stakeholders could think of, we would include into a schematic design. And then we look at applying the rules and regulations of what we needed to do with this building. Our experts and our users, our stakeholders, we would review what governs a facility of this type. I've confirmed that our pool designer, we have an expert pool designer, one of the top designers in the state, had reviewed with CIF the regulations that go with a pool. They, of course, are our CIF is the California Interscholastic Foundation or Federation, and they're governed by the National Federation of State High School Associations. And so they pointed us there, and we all have kind of on our desktop or in our bookcase the guiding book of rules and regulations by NFHS. And so we put those into action. We looked at other pools, other high school pools across the state. What sizes, what features do they have? How many diving boards do they install? Are they community use? Are they just the high school use? And then industry experts as well. What type of pools are installed? We looked at a couple of different types of pool construction, and so that came into play as well. As we moved forward through the design, we began our cost estimating process. And as one can imagine, a design that is program rich, when we put in all of the features, when we're at the want to have stage as opposed to need to have stage, oftentimes the project is over the budget limits that we have to work with. And so we moved into a multi-month process of cost estimating. We had professional cost estimating performed by two different separate professional cost estimating engineering companies. We did a comparison, we did a reconciliation, and then we took the time to what we call value engineer the building, not cutting program, but making the building more efficient, more effective. Examples would be we're able to narrow some of the hallways. We originally began with 2 concession areas in the complex, and we were able to combine it into 1 concession area that serves 2 directions. And so by becoming more efficient in our design, we were able to get closer to budget and refine and define, as I said, a more efficient design without program loss. As we move forward through the design completion and begin to submit our project to the state architect's office, we'll be conducting yet another round of cost estimating for the project with the final DSA, if you will, submittal plans And we'll go through another round of cost reconciliation. This evening, part of the action this evening is to authorize the project to go to bid once it is ready and once we're at a comfort level of DSA review and comments. We've split the project into 2 increments, as we often do. You'll recall that in increment 1, often site work and utilities, rough grading type of thing, is a lesser review at the state level, so it happens faster and we can get underway, get construction going sooner. That's a time savings tactic or technique that we employ so that we can begin our projects sooner. And then after that, increment 2, the buildings themselves and of course the swimming pool will come later date for approval and then go into bidding and contracting shortly thereafter. We have some work with the city to do, some collaboration and permitting for some of the off-site. Recall that our areas that are out in city streets require city permits to do work in, and so we'll be working with the city of Livermore going into the spring and summer for that permitting process. So let's take a look at some of the construction logistics. How do we plan on getting through where we are today through this very, very large, you'll recall, this is the largest project in the Measure J bond program, the largest of our signature projects as well. And so there's a lot of pieces that go with it that we need to choreograph, if you will, very, very, very closely to keep our students, our staff, and our public safe and minimize the impact to the educational program at the campus. And so here's some information of how we're going to get through that. You can see in front of you the current site plan. This is the finish, if you will, of the additional 2 lanes that we added to the track and the new bleachers at the stadium, and then the revised parking lot and the new driveway entry, and of course the temporary parking area that the students are using now. From here, we're going to go to what our planned summer 2019 construction is. You can see in the red dashed lines the areas that we intend to work in, the construction zone, if you will. The light yellow area, kind of in the center on the left, is the outline of our new building. It's a very, very large building. It's combined of the 2 stories is almost 50,000 square feet. It's larger than the combined area of the 2 existing buildings, and so it takes up a lot of space. It's adjacent to the existing gymnasium. Recall that part of the plan opted to leave the existing gymnasiums in place until we constructed the new gymnasium so that we didn't have to displace or interim house the athletics and physical education program at the campus. When we begin building this building or constructing this pad and doing the utilities work this summer, the contractor, and going forward as we build the building, needs a staging area or what we call a laydown area. And so we've collaborated with the campus and we've coordinated that the best area to do that is to consume the student parking lot for the duration of construction so that we can safely construct the building, and it will also separate, by having the construction all on that side of the campus, will separate staff and public and students from construction by moving student parking to other areas of the campus. There are 2 areas shown here. One is at, we call the north triangle, if you will, the north end of the track to the upper right. And it's a small parking lot that we're planning to add this summer. And then, of course, we've spoken about adding parking and sidewalk along the back side of the visitor bleachers going down School Street. So that is planned to be worked on this summer as well. The combined number of spaces of those 2 areas don't replicate all of the student parking lot that we have now. We end up short by about 90 spaces. And so we're looking at all the different possibilities that we can, whether it be additional areas around the campus, on the campus. We believe we've identified an area on the campus that is very, very suitable. We've collaborated with the campus, and we're beginning to do some preliminary layouts of how we might provide a temporary parking lot in an alternate area of the campus in some underutilized spaces. And so that's something that we'll continue to work with the campus on. A challenge of this layout is that during events, we will have limited parking, limited right next to the stadium parking. And so it's an item that we'll continue to work with the campus on to determine how best to make sure we have safe and continuous access to the stadium for events. We will always provide pedestrian access to the stadium from the streets and to the bleachers from the street side, 4th Street, if you will, so that events can occur. We do anticipate, though, that that student parking lot is going to be closed for 2 or more years while we're building this building. So from this summer, we'll move into this fall, which now you can see that the dash line is gone from the north parking lot and from School Street area. So we're anticipating opening those parking lot areas or those parking areas for the start of school. And now you see in the yellow area, it's no longer just a yellow building pad. You see the first floor plan, if you will, of the building itself. And that's indicating that we're going to be beginning the construction of the athletics complex this fall. Again, as I shared, it's about a 2-year building process for this building. We've again moved all the staging to the area of the student parking lot, separating the public and students from the construction and minimizing impact to the school and staff. So we still will continue to work through the logistics of parking for events and the like. So that's the 2 years that we'll be building the athletics complex itself. Note that the existing gymnasiums and the existing pool are still in place. From there then, once we complete the new athletics building, we'll move into it, and then we'll shift our construction area to the area that was occupied by the 2 existing gymnasiums and the existing pool complex. We'll demolish those facilities, and then we'll construct the new 38-meter by 25-yard pool with its associated equipment building and changing facilities, which is shown there on the far left at the lower portion of the page. Again, in the light yellow or tan. This is the one phase or the one section of the project that is going to require that we displace program, similar to the Granada pool, where we had to demolish the old pool before the new pool is up and running. At Livermore High School, we will be demolishing the old pool, then constructing the new pool. The new pool is actually in the footprint or in the same area, occupies the same area as the current main gym. And so one step has to follow the other, and we will need to alternate or interim house or displace, if you will, the aquatics activities at Livermore High School for what we anticipate is the 2021-22 school year. The key piece that is goes with the completion of the project or this phase is we will begin to create that area of land for potential future classroom building as well once we remove the existing gymnasiums and existing pool building. So here, almost 3 years or a little more than 3 years from now is the completed project with the new athletics complex, the new aquatic center, the completed parking lot, School Street, the north parking lot, the expanded track and field, and the new bleachers. We've shown here, you can see it in the bottom right-hand corner, what we're going to discuss in a future slide is one of the bid alternates that we wanted to propose and are planning to prepare to have into the construction bid documents. It's a program enhancement, if you will, kind of kind of making a better corner, or we call it softening the curve on Cowboy Alley, where currently we have two streets kind of dead-ending perpendicular into each other. And we envision creating a welcome enhanced student drop-off, whether it has, we had a suggestion, perhaps like bus stop covered waiting areas, benches, just something more than having students sit on the ground and lean up against the building. And so we envision that that could be a great program enhancement, potentially extending it further toward 4th Street and then further towards Maple Street as well, creating even a possibility of an enhanced main entry or student entry from Cowboy Alley into the campus as well. And so that's a piece that we're proposing in discussion in a later slide. So that was 3 years and 5 slides. That's a lot of information that went real fast, but the time will fly once we get going. There will be a lot of dust and there will be a lot of noise, but everyone involved, I think, is very, very excited, and everyone that we're coordinating with is ready to get a little dusty and bear a little bit of noise for the ultimate outcome of having this project. I want to leave the nuts and bolts for a minute and celebrate some images of the athletics building. We have 2 parts this evening. First is a fly around, or imagine yourself videoing through a drone. And then the second part is some still images taken from the drone. The images are a next step beyond renderings, if you will. These are computer modeled images of what the building is actually going to look like once it's completed. I'm going to cue us up if I can, and then have Erwin take it over from here and walk us through the presentation. Is not.
What's that? Yeah, it is now. It was off.
So this fly through, Erwin can narrate, or just imagine yourself beginning looking down Cowboy Alley as we fly through. Next time we'll put some music to it. So that was the first time for most of you to have seen that. I've watched it about 20 times myself, and it gets better every single time. We'll go through some individual slides that are taken from that fly through, and Erwin can talk us through it, and then we can play that video once again.
Thanks, Tim.
So what we want to do is, we took a lot of, some snapshots of different parts of the building so we could pause it a little bit and kind of highlight some of the features of the building. We like to think of this as a building that kind of embraces the past but looks forward. If you look at the building, the north and south sides of the buildings takes its architectural cues from the 1929 admin building. It's got the thicker looking walls, it's got rectangular tall windows, and it has punctured openings within the building. The east and west sides take a more forward-looking, a more contemporary look. The part that is open, inviting to both the public and the students. This is a view you're looking at as you're turning in from Cowboy Alley into the parking lot, the drop-off. And you can see from the drop-off, it's a very open entry with a large covered area. And when you arrive here, you really have a sense that you're entering a building that's significant facility. You're not just entering a gymnasium, but you're entering an athletic complex. And it should have that feel when you arrive there. You can see on the upper roof there, there's a halo of translucent skylights, if you will, kind of like a clear story, that will bring in natural light into the two athletic play areas. We've used that on a lot of jobs, and in a lot of times of the day during the year, you don't have to have the lights on. It's pretty bright in there. And actually, the Cal Green Code now dictates a lot of these things that you'll see in the newer buildings. Go to the next one. Yeah. So this is the entry from the parking lot. And you can see the large overhang, which is actually like a porch. And it signifies the front door to this building. Everybody knows this is the entry to the building. You see that part that has that diagonal angled bottom. That's actually the stair, part of the stair going up to the second floor. And what it does, it connects the people in the building back to the community outside. And it works the same way the community can see the activity within the building. As you walk into the building up the stairs, and the first landing you look out, you go up the stairs, and then you're on the second floor. We also have a ticket booth, a ticket function at the front of the building, and it's located between the stadium, football stadium entry and the entry to the basketball or to the athletic complex, so that can be used for both purposes. It also provides a more secure environment for money exchange, ticketing, and things like that. Go next. This is actually the entry to the stadium, and it's actually the highest part of the building. And just to give you a little perspective, context of it, the top part of the building is about 50 feet, which is about the same as the top of the press box, which is about the same, 45 feet plus or minus the top of the admin building. And the tower to the admin building is about 70 feet tall, so you can get an idea of, you know, the relative heights of these different buildings. As you enter the stadium, we've planned it so that the concession stands, I think Tim mentioned that earlier, has a dual function. It can be used from both the inside of the indoor activity lobby as well as outside. You see right there's a pair of roll-up doors so that it can roll up. It's a protected area, so there's not a lot of wind in there, and it's a place for people to queue up. It's also the place where you can access the restrooms for the visitor side. Go next. This is a view, kind of a high view looking across the track. This is the two-story part. You see the high part there has the auxiliary gymnasium on it, and below it is adaptive PE classes, weight rooms, and football locker rooms. And one of the things that's nice about it is, first of all, the location, proximity of that program to the athletic field and the outdoors. There's also two large roll-up doors, so both the PE and adaptive PE classroom and the weight room
can roll it up and have a connection to the outside. There's a lot of physical activity that goes on in the weight room that gets pretty crowded, so you can actually go out and do ropes and some other things that takes more area. Similarly for the adaptive PE class. It also provides ventilation and supervision of where the kids are. You know, in a lot of weight rooms, kids go out for a breather and you don't know what happened to them, but here you can keep an eye on them if they're outside there. On top of the football locker room, where that logo is, where the Cowboy logo is the wrestling room. So that's about a 50 by 50 square foot room that holds the whole wrestling room. And it's accessed by a student lobby on the west side of the building. Here you see the west side of the building. We heard a lot of comments that the student entry shouldn't be a back door to this facility, but should it be significant and celebrated just like the public entry. So we developed actually a lobby there that has some gathering areas, the stairs to go to the wrestling room upstairs, as well as to access the auxiliary gym on the second floor. You can see also the locker room on the left there in the two blue modesty panels, if you will. That's the boys and girls locker room that you come out to the pool. On the left-hand side there, you see the pool facility, which has pump rooms and chlorination systems, as well as a locker room or small changing rooms and some restrooms. It gives you the flexibility that the public can use the pool and not have to enter into the locker room. There's like a separate area there. The other thing I point out again is you can see the halo of the clear story going around the whole building. The roofs are going to be similar in color to the roofs of the admin building. So it'll have that tile look to it, although it won't be tile, but it will tie the buildings into some of the context there, like the admin buildings, the church, and some of the other buildings that are there nearby. As you enter the building, this is the lobby of the building, and it's not just a vestibule, it's really a lobby. It's a 2-story height space, and we're still in the process of developing it, but some of the features will be banners will be able to be hoisted up in this lobby here for the different teams. There'll be trophy cases so that people intermission or they can come out and they can look at various things. And you can see at the far end there is the concession stand. And right now the concession stand is rendered and portrayed as an exterior opening, so you can see right through it. So I mentioned before, it can function both ways. You can close the outside and use it just from the lobby from the inside, or you can close the inside and just use it on the outside, or you can use it at both. And the restrooms work in a similar way. So we didn't have to double up on the restrooms. The restrooms can be open from the football side when games are in progress, and that can be closed, and it can be opened on the lobby side when indoor activity is going on. You can see this.
We're done?
Yeah, you can see the stair going up and over the concession area is the second floor and access to the auxiliary gym. So this is the main gym. It's close to 19,000 square feet, this floor area. 2 sides of bleachers, and you can see on the second floor there's kind of an upper balcony seating that can be pulled out. Its capacity is about 275 people, so you can increase the capacity or you can slide it back. And one of the things the users were talking about was using that space up there for other activities, gatherings and things like that, because it has a nice overlook on, obviously, the gymnasium. We purposely kept the interior colors and things kind of neutral on this because we feel that there will be a lot of graphics and things put into that gym. And on the floors, the bleachers themselves will probably have lettering on it or things like that. You've probably seen that when you push the bleachers back, it writes LHS or Cowboys or whatever you want to say there. So there'll be a lot of colorations that the building doesn't have to really carry. This is the auxiliary gym, and you can see the high windows on the north side there, so they'll bring in a lot of natural light as well as the clear story halo around the building. It's a full 84 by 50 foot court up there, basketball court, and it can open up to both sides, from the student side as well as the public side, and it can be accessed by the balcony as well. And adjacent from this is a hallway, not pictured, but that's where the wrestling room is, and then the student lobby area. Let's see.
So that takes us through the last of the stills. What I thought we would like to do, we're just going to indulge and take another minute. And now that you've seen the stills and heard Erwin's description of the different pieces and parts as they came around the same direction of the building, let's go ahead and take a look again at the fly-through, and you can relate the descriptions to the various areas of the building. And there we have that portion of tonight's presentation. I'm kind of reluctant to, but I need to move on with some more nuts and bolts stuff for a few minutes. But if you will indulge with us, I'll keep it moving as quickly as we can. Budgets, cost, bids, and bid alternates. This is kind of the nitty-gritty of money of a large project such as this. Remember, our current budget at the highest level right now is $53 million. In a program such as ours, this Measure J program, we have a bunch of different levels of budgeting and types of budgets, and so I thought I would just kind of touch on a little bit of that. At the highest level, Measure J, $245 million. That's our highest level budget. Come down one click from there, Livermore High School, the campus has been identified as allocated approximately $68 million. This project plus other projects that are identified there. That's a next level or another level of budgeting. And then here, this specific project, the athletics complex at $53 million, is yet another level of budgeting. The project budget, as we work our way down into this level, contains oftentimes 20 or more different line items, which in themselves are a additional level of budgeting. Many are budgeted amounts. Some of them are very specific, defined amounts. And as we go through the project, the amounts that are budgeted become refined and defined into more hard numbers, if you will. So we work from concept to completion of a project through budgets, managing them all the way through. This particular project has 5 different fiscal years that it spreads across, so we cash flow project out the entire project so that we have that management tool in the program, which as we go through and track and manage the budget as we continue through the construction, helps to inform the decision-making process, whether that be for added features along the way, whether it be for bid alternates that we'll discuss here in a few minutes, or a very recent example at the Granada High School athletics building and aquatics complex there. We opted to add some water valves that weren't on the original plans, but would enhance the long-term maintainability of the campus and the project. And so, because we're nearly halfway through our underground utilities on that campus, we know where our budget is, we know that we could afford it, we make a decision in the field to add a valve that has a long-term lasting impact. And that's some of the tools and how our budgeting process works as we go through the projects. A little bit about cost. We've talked about this as well. Project cost versus construction cost. Whenever we have a conversation at the board level, we talk about project cost. That's everything included in the project. That's our $53 million for this project. That includes the hard cost, if you will, what we refer to as the construction costs. And it also includes the architect's fees, it includes building permit fees, it includes project inspection fees, legal fees, furniture, equipment, and contingency. So there are many, many different line items that go into a budget and the costing process. Generally, project cost versus construction cost is about a 70-30 split, where 70% of the project cost is the hard construction cost and 30% is soft cost. On this particular project, because of the large scale of it, we're able to reduce the amount of soft cost percentage, and so we have a little bit more money to spend on hard construction cost. Estimates and allowances, as I shared, we've done that along the way, and we'll continue to do estimates throughout, whether they be the whole project, or they be portions of the project, or they be changes that we're contemplating along the way. In our budgeting process, we have allowances for things like legal services. We don't know how much we have an allowance. We have a budget, but we don't know exact number of what the legal service will be. In our bidding process, we have allowances that will include for safety measures along the way in construction that we may determine along the way, but we don't know exactly what they'll be when we begin the project, or unforeseen conditions that will come across as we dig a hole in the ground. We don't know what they may be, but we put that allowance into the project so that we have that flexibility to keep the project moving. And then in our contracting itself, if we authorize the contractor to move forward based on one of the allowances, then oftentimes we'll do that on a time and materials basis, which is yet another type of budgeting or an allowance process. So the continuum, again, is from beginning to end in how we do estimates and operate within allowances and control cost. We have purchase orders and contracts within the project costs and the project budgets. Some examples of a purchase order could be something as simple as Office Depot supplies, or temporary fencing, or the DSA permit fees are a purchase order. Contracts would include the architect, the project inspector, the general contractor who's building the building has a contract. And so there's various types of contracting vehicles within the cost control process. As we move into the bid process in a project, this particular project we've identified as utilizing the design bid build process, or hard bid as we know it. That is just what it says. We're designing it, we'll bid it, and then we'll go build it in that sequence. During the bidding process, there are various activities that we go through along the way that are legal requirements, some are procedural requirements, some are things that are just good management practices that we employ. Legal advertisement, very specific language, very specific requirements that we must do. Contractors who are bidding our projects all must be pre-qualified to varying degrees and varying levels, depending upon what type of work and what dollar volume of work that they'd like to do for us. We conduct mandatory pre-bid job visits where the contractors must come see the site so they know what they're signing up for. And then during the bid period, we also have pre-bid correspondence. The contractor is allowed to ask questions, and we provide answers, or we may adjust the plans along the way, type of thing, all during that bid period that normally lasts 4 to 6 weeks. Then we open the bids. That too is a very, very formal process, public opening process conducted typically in the boardroom here. Then we review, evaluate those bids that we received. Is everybody licensed, properly licensed? We compare the subcontractors from one bidder to another. Is there someone or some contractor that raises a flag or is an anomaly in the bidding process? And we'll conduct an interview with the potentially, or the low bidder, if you will, to verify that they've got all the scope covered, that they've got all the requirements covered, and they're ready to come build this building for us. And then we would come to the board with a recommendation to award or not to award the contract for the work to be done. During this bidding process and earlier, this concept of bid alternates is something that is new here. It's the first time we've identified them at this stage of the project, and they can be additive or deductive to what we call the base bid, where the contractor will bid on the scope and kind of an options list, if you will, or added features to the new car we're buying. So we try to be selective in what we do here. We go through the process of design and programming and user input, and we create this very, very large list of all the things that we'd like to have, and then we narrow it down to the things that we believe are most important to the project. In this bid climate where there is a lot of work out there, where the bidding, we're competing to get folks to bid our work as opposed to their needing to very competitively bid the work. We try to limit the number of alternates that we would include in the project, because if we had too many alternates, then often is the case where the contractor would just go bid another project. They wouldn't even bother with bidding our project because it becomes too cumbersome, too complicated for them to bid. And so we try to limit the number of alternates that we put into a project. The different type of alternates that we would put in really kind of come into 3 different categories. They can be program enhancements. This is the Cowboy Alley improvement that I illustrated in the final slide of the construction sequencing, where we're enhancing, we're adding to the project something that may not be in the original budget or the current budget, but we wanted to investigate to see what the cost might be, and we may want to either increase the budget, or it may fit into the budget if we get very competitive low bids, so there may not be a budget impact whatsoever. We have an area that we can utilize for cost offsetting. Rooftop solar is another one that we want to look at for this project by putting solar panels on as much area of our large roof as we can. We believe that we can offset the additional energy consumption cost of air conditioning the building, which lasts for a long, long time, and the payback is very short. And by making the capital expenditure up front, we're getting immediate return on the use of those solar panels. And so we believe that might be something that we want to look at as well. And the third category that we look at in bid alternates Could be if we're not sure how the bids are going to come in, we may put features of a project into a bid alternate to assure us the ability to build the building. Currently, we don't have any budgetary type bid alternates, but the large building, the large project is some months away from bidding. And so we'll determine as we get closer whether we need to or want to add any budgetary type bid alternates into the project, or if we wanted to add some other program enhancement feature into it as well. And so that's kind of the bid alternate process. At this time, there isn't any budget impact, and so there isn't any discussion about more than 53 million or less than 53 million. It's a deliberation that the board will be asked to do once we bring the bids to the board for the big project, for the buildings themselves. The increment 1 site work portion does not currently have any alternates in it. It's just the big athletics complex itself. And so later in the summer or early fall, when we bring those bids to the board, that's when we'll talk about either accepting or declining bid alternates. That was a long slide, but I thought that it would be good to kind of walk through some of these steps, really to illustrate two things, is that there is a process that we follow, and also to illustrate, remind us, as well as our public viewers, that these are the steps that we take to assure good stewardship of the public tax dollars. And so it's a very, very prescriptive process that we follow, and not to be strayed from. On to schedule, very briefly. We've talked about most of this, where we've been, a couple of different increments. The first increment is at the state currently, and we're expecting approval in the next 90 days, 60 days. The second increment, the large portion, the buildings and the pool, goes into the state architect for approval very first week in February. And then that takes some months, as I described, a longer time for the bigger scope to be approved. We'll be bidding the increment 1 work later in the early spring with potential or planned contract award in May, begin construction the day after graduation, and then that area will be under construction for approximately 3 years, with project completion fall of the year 2022. So next steps, this evening's request for authorization to bid the project. Again, DSA approval of the increment 1 and then increment 2 bidding. The Board of Trustees award a contract, get the contractor on site, get going, and get done. That's kind of the process that will follow. So the last slide then is the superintendent's recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the authorization to bid the Livermore High School Athletics and Aquatics Complex project. Sorry that was long. Thank you for your attention, and be happy to share or discuss anything that you may have for either Irwin or I.
Thank you both. We'll start with Mr. Rogie.
First off, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate how much work the project, the bidding, the design, everything that you've given us has taken. Please don't apologize for the length of time. These are important projects, and we're spending a lot of money for them, and the more time we spend to get it right or acceptable, I think is important. First, I want to start with some subjective things. I was given part of this last Thursday in a meeting with you and Mr. Wenzel. Something about the design, and this is just subjective, and nobody has to agree with me, but it's part of the design bothered me, and I could never put my finger on it until I walked it around several schools. And I realized that the exterior part of it with the high-rise roof and the slender support poles made it look like East Avenue, Mitchell, Junction, several others, because of that same flat roof and tall thing. It was 50-ish and a lot of square edges. And that's what I finally put my finger on come Sunday night. That's where it kept driving me back to. In our original discussions back a year ago, the design was supposed to get incorporated a little bit of the old gym. And that's where I've discovered that in that flat roof where you've got the front of the gym coming off of Cowboy Alley, I thought would be a great place for a little bit of a cantilever roof instead of the flat roof. So it mimicked more of the gym with the red roof. Again, those are my suggestions, or my observations. The same thing with the Cowboy Alley side where you've got the flat roof facing Cowboy Alley with the windows. Again, another I thought would be a great place for a cantilever roof. Also, I do like the drive-in, the front drive-through. Unfortunately, it's going to take up parking spots, and I haven't decided whether that's good or bad, but I do like that whole drive-in. The only other reason I also thought about the cantilever roofs, because if on pictures on page 7, top of the picture, is the curved Livermore High School sign that would fit well with a cantilevered roof or a rounded roof, and would fit with the design. Now, I have designed things at home that don't exactly look great, so again, this is very subjective to me. Some of the other things I do want to discuss is the parking triangle. I'm pretty much against that, and here's the reason why. Because I think it's a big liability, and I've expressed this issue before. I may not or will win on this. I don't know, but I would like the parking triangle liability review by our insurance company, by the city planning, and by the police department to look at potential problems with it. And the reason I say there's potential problems, and I think they're real problems, is that is a blind corner coming off 4th Street, down School Street, and then on Pastana. I stood there Friday and watched people take out of there on after school and at night rounding that corner. It's a busy, fast corner. People who live in that area know how to take that S-turn coming off of 4th Street, down School Street, and on Pastana. It's a tough corner, and if we put a parking lot there and have an exit there, I just think it's full of liability. But if we want to do that, I would sure like to see those reviews and sign-offs, and then I'd be happy with it as long as those things happen. Other things I would also like to see more stated was what we get and what we're not getting. And this comes in from the Livermore High Track. We missed some opportunities, things that weren't asked, things that were decided on, and things were not brought back to this board where we may or may not have spent more money to have it done. It's a moot point now, but I don't want to see these kind of things happen in the future with a lot of this stuff. So I would like to see sign-offs on what we're not getting and what we're getting by the school staff in the district and sent to the board for review. This could or could not save money. I also understand that it costs more for DSA. There was a new law that was sent through this year that they increased all the DSA costs, so I understand that this could get expensive. But I really do want to have it done right the first time through. Let's see. I think I'll just hold off. I do want to say that I do like the interiors. I do like the pool setup. Again, on the flat roof on the pool side, I think we could cantilever that to mimic what the old gym looked like, and it would look pretty nice, but that's, again, subjective on my part. But I do like the interiors. I like all the room. I like the LHS. One thing you forgot to mention was the banner hanging, which I thought was pretty innovative when you had told us on last Friday, where you're going to hang banners with all the school awards and things on it instead of having the awards all over the place. I thought that was pretty innovative. And I did want to ask one other thing is about bathrooms. Bathrooms seem to be a big deal. How many bathrooms are in this gym? 25 for women and 5 for men?
I don't have the count hand. I have a whole lot of other data. I did not count the restroom fixtures. I do know that I would say we are restroom rich.
Good. Public access on the one side and the locker rooms on the other.
Absolutely, yeah. And multiple areas of restrooms, including all gender restroom facilities in the new building as well.
Great. So with that, I would like the board to discuss those other things that I brought up about the liabilities and sign-offs and things and see if they think that's a good idea. And with that, I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. We'll move to Mr. Wenzel.
Thank you very much. A lot of work. Thank you for the meeting that we had together, explaining this. It made it a lot easier to understand, and it's beautiful. It's a great campus. I'd like the videos to show blue skies instead of clouds, but we'll talk about that. So, you said something about the bathrooms. Isn't there a requirement code based on capacity? You have to have a certain amount, so you use that number, right? Okay.
Yeah, we've also, I didn't mention, we also have a set of restrooms that is located on the student side, which can be used for outdoor, for the kids as well as the visitors' bleacher area.
Yeah, so
they're spread out.
Yeah, there's mandates, and we've gone over that, so that's good. Going back to the parking issues, displaced about 96 plus or minus spaces. What I didn't think about was the football games, the events. That's a lot more vehicles, obviously. You were going to talk about working with the community and getting, I know the church parking lot for extra spaces. Now, have those numbers been figured out, what we anticipate and where these cars are going to park? Plus, PD, I know we have reserves working, but, kids and trying to find a parking, rushing to the games, that, running across the street and all those issues. Has that been looked at, and we kind of have an idea when games occur?
I would say it's still in process.
In process,
as we move forward, because there's that piece that we talked about last week about laying out potential areas in underutilized areas on the campus, as well as then the suggestions that came up in our series of meetings of looking in the neighborhood or nearby. I've done a bunch of that, and there really isn't a whole lot in the neighborhood for areas or vacant lots that might be rentable or usable for an interim parking. So we'll continue to study it and work with the campuses on that.
So there isn't. So we have to figure out communication with other schools coming in, and how we want to park and transportation. Maybe there's something I haven't thought of.
And a lot of that you're right, exactly right. It can be operational in nature in terms of information out to visiting folks and teams of directions or maps, or here's the interim parking lot type of thing, and potentially event staff and augmented event staff to maintain safety throughout an event.
Okay. And I know, like at professional events, at the end for like a half an hour, and I used to do it to get people out safely. The police department would be there, or maybe people in special vests can just move traffic quickly through this area, so that the frustrations aren't there. We talked. We did talk. The alternates, and the main two was Cowboy Alley and Solar. And I know the alternates is a great idea to have a plan as this is going, and we started to notice the funding is, we're ahead of the game here, and this would be a good thing to have. How were the alternates vetted? How did we get to the point where those are the two things versus maybe there's 8 other things we didn't think about? How did those get selected?
The two that we're contemplating are call it towards the end of design items that came up. They're ideas that we've recently developed. Well, solar's been around since we began the project, actually.
No, it's an excellent idea, and I get it. But it's the other people asking, why didn't you think about this? So we did. We vetted this out. We went to talk to coaches, teachers,
I guess I would have to make the statement, and the campus folks, I think would agree, is that this facility has everything that was wanted. And so there weren't really any additive things on a list that needed to be included. I guess off the top of my head, I could think of one that we're reusing the sound system that the campus installed less than 5 years ago. if there was maybe we would buy a new sound system and put the existing sound system in the auxiliary gym or things of that nature. But as we developed the design, there weren't any items, and Erwin, jump in if you can remember of anything that really came to the surface of things that we had to set aside because I believe we did a really diligent job of creating an efficient design that fit within the board authorized budget. And so those two go hand in hand as well. The board has recognized that this significant project needed a significant budget. And so we believe that, we'll see on bid day, of course, but we believe right now that we have sufficient funds to build the facility that captures all of the needs and wants of the campus.
And that's all I'm saying. I think it's a great idea, having this, getting ready, the work's going. But I'd hate to hear from certain people that we didn't, or, hey, you were told. I can't remember going back to what all the issues and what they wanted to build here. And then all of a sudden, we've already established this alternate. So if there's a record that Cowboy Alley, yes, we did, and we weren't sure we can get it in, but now we know we can, and this was a priority A. Great. Solar, I don't think anybody could argue that that's something that is necessary. It's almost a no-brainer. So I just want to be clear on that. I don't remember those alternates. So, but if you did as professionals and you're presenting it to us, that these were the two priorities of our alternates, then that's all I'm asking. You used the term soft costs. So, I look at the basketball court and I don't see that new scoreboard yet, and the center court and stuff, that's all already built in, those costs? Okay.
Yes.
What was the last one? I look at it's beautiful. I think it's great. Do we have anywhere, it's kind of a maintenance issue. I look at the glass stairs. It's beautiful. And so our maintenance people are going to have to clean those things. 'Cause that's looking in, I don't want to see it. And it's like, do we have anywhere that they have these type of height and windows and such, But that's what really makes, when you look at that picture, it's having it nice and clean and looking in and seeing the people. That's extra work for our maintenance staff, or are they doing that anywhere else that I'm just not thinking of, cleaning windows like that?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's an operational piece that we as a district are going to have to work through and make sure is taken care of.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. It's I like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. And we'll move to Mrs. White.
Clearly, this is going to be a notable facility in Livermore. I think we do need to address Mr. Rogi's comment about the safety of that one parking lot. I didn't go look, and I don't know what I would look for if I were the person gathering data about the safety of that corner. I don't know how quickly that could get done, if we could follow the superintendent's recommendation with that kind of a carve out tonight, or whether it would delay the whole process for 2 weeks, which I really don't want to do, for 3 weeks till we meet again. It's delighted.
Yes.
It's good to hear that we got everything we asked for. That's that's remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mrs.
it would
White.
certainly, we regularly bring in people whenever we make any change to a school, or when we even consider temporary change. We did when we had the reconstruction of the fields and the current stadium project, and even when we did solar, we were relocating. And so we don't do that in isolation. We do bring in, we've had Safe Routes to Schools look, we've had our traffic enforcement folks come. So we do that. We may not have added the level at the state level. I'm not sure that could have happened, but I know that we, anytime we make a change to anything in our, in how our entry and our access points go, we don't just make it, there's a communication piece to make people aware. We always encourage carpooling. We give alternate drop-offs and things like that, but there's also signage, but then we actually don't rely only on our own expertise and our feel for it. We actually have usually the Safe Routes to School. That's paid for from taxpayers' money too. And so they're happy to come out and they give lists of recommendations. Sometimes they see things we don't. Sometimes it's just repainting curbs or signage or, but they watch the flow. So
Mhm.
that helps a lot. And they look at pedestrian as well as car because that's key too. And
Well, I just don't think we can turn our backs on the observation that it might not be safe.
yeah, no,
That-
I
that
think,
one
it's a
parking
very
lot.
valid point. I mean, safety's really key. So we can certainly bring folks in. My understanding is it's not even a cost measure that's add on. It usually comes from existing taxpayers' funds that these services are provided. And then there's usually money tied with the improvements. So some of it might be temporary, but some of it might end up being long-term.
Mr. Wenzel?
Speaking on the parking lot, has the city seen this?
I've reviewed in concept both the School Street parking and the north parking lot area. So technically, the driveway is compliant with the setback distance from, but to Mr. Rogi's point, operationally, it's something that perhaps we do want to take to that next level of review. And it would not be the first time that I've counted cars driving by and on a operation such as this where we're contemplating adding a feature, perhaps a more in-depth traffic study is warranted in it, and certainly that safety piece. And then the contemplation becomes is 40 additional or 35 additional spaces worth the risk assessment of the condition. That comes down to that type of discussion, right? Is we apply a risk level to that type of condition, and we perhaps should have that conversation. So I will go and do some additional study and gather some additional information and perhaps bring that back to the board.
And it can also come up in intergovernmental, and Mr. Manchak meets regularly with city planners and all that too. So it isn't always
I
a
do
burden
too,
for the bond department. I think some of us can pick up that too and then share.
Because I've seen parking lots like this and they added a flashing light and then during things, but the city will have to approve the way that driveway comes out, right? And so
Absolutely.
they have seen that, but that's really not official. Right?
I
That
say
they
that, I'm
haven't,
sorry?
they haven't stamped the approval. I mean, this is just, this looks fine, but then they have to do their measurements and then their traffic flow and what was the term? Route trips. And I mean, there's all these different things that they look at. So that hasn't been, that analysis hasn't done.
I don't think that level of analysis of trip generation counts would warrant that.
Okay.
But
They haven't officially looked at it and
not in that capacity, no. We have not submitted formal design drawings to them yet.
Just on that singular point, are these projects subject to city plan review?
For the off-site work, yes. For the driveway, leaving that parking lot, and for the work on School Street, the Cowboy Alley enhancements as one of those alternates would be city reviewed as well, because that's on city right-of-way, if you will.
Okay, and the rest would be Department of State architect.
That's correct.
Do we do a courtesy review on the portions that are on-site? The reason I ask that is that it is customary in some municipalities to do a courtesy review because it's not their policy, but you can get the operational capacity of the public safety for egress and access for the emergency rigs because they have templates that they do overlays on.
Correct, yes, and we do, and I guess I would add, when you were speaking of traffic and I was thinking of parking, but you were putting on your fire chief's hat, and yes,
just
the
a school
city,
board hat.
the city, Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department is the authority having jurisdiction over emergency vehicle access and fire protection systems on the site. And so for that type of thing, for access and driveways and widths and heights of clearance, that is Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department jurisdicted. We do visit with city planning, city engineering, and share with them our master plans. I've shared with them the master plans for all of our campuses that we're contemplating construction on, and they are also the authority having jurisdiction for our local stormwater management exercises and plans that we do. We're regulated to filter our storm water before we let it go downstream anymore. So they're the authority having jurisdiction on that. But buildings in general is Division of State Architect, and then, like I say, off sites or at property line and into the city street is city jurisdicted.
But to confirm, we do a courtesy review on the areas that they're not.
Yes.
The state fire marshal doesn't relegate his responsibilities to the local jurisdiction on the on-site buildings, but we do a courtesy review.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mrs. Prusso?
I'm really excited about this project, and I appreciate, like everyone else has already said, all the work that you guys have put into this and presenting it. What I like about the design is the artistry and the function, and I think I really appreciate that. And I think that goes together well. I guess my concern is much like everyone else's, is the parking issue. If Craig can put on his fire chief hat, I got to put on my parent hat. I have drivers at Livermore High School, and I am concerned about the number of parking. And I know we've talked about this. I know you're working on that, but that would be something. And then also the other thing that I was considering is that parking on School Street, the street parking to put in. Will that create another entrance into the school property? I mean, right now there's not an entrance from there. I mean, I think there is one, but it's closed, gated. So then that would be open and then closed during the day. There'd be like some security there. Okay. That was just my question of when we move the parking around, we'll still have a secure campus. Just to consider that. And then I would just echo what the others have said about possibly a traffic study. And then for me, just numbers of parking spaces is a concern. But then again, I also just wanted to say, I think it's beautiful, and I think it will be a great example to the community of what their tax dollars are doing. And hopefully, they'll want to continue to keep doing that. So anyway, thank you.
And so these are definitely things we'll be looking into more depth, and we'll keep you apprised of things we learn. A good example was when we went through the issues with Granada, so far as, rerouting. Then we temporarily made kind of the back entrance off of Mocho side over there, open to kids. And then we had to staff with, we had to have our campus supervisor relocate. We also then, whenever you make these kinds of changes, we have to completely look at our evacuation plans, our emergency practices. And so all of those things. So, but then again, that isn't solely the bond departments. That's when, Mr. Vernoy will be doing his emergency part, and then we'll all be working with that. And then HR helps to see if we have to change hours or do different things. And so what's really nice is you're seeing the scope of this is one thing, but then there's also the larger scope and the responsibility to everyone. One thing I just always like to remind everyone as what happened is there's going to be some level of discomfort in any construction.
Yeah.
We showed with solar people, and we were so over prepared for the inconvenience of the solar parking spots, and then sometimes we delayed so that more things would happen in summer. But actually people were pretty patient and kind of dealt with it. And some said, oh, we're getting more steps. We're parking a little further away and we're getting fit, or, so there were things like that.
High school students don't do that.
No, it's just staff. I think mostly the staff, but we, but I just always like to remind everyone, and as part of our messaging is, with any large project like this, it can't all happen in a summer. So there is going to be, while we try to mitigate as much as possible, for a little while, there will be some things that aren't as easy or comfortable. But sit in our gym at Livermore High on a really hot day right now, and you'd say, you know what, I would walk further to get into this great place. And so that's something we'll all work with, that it isn't going to be exactly the same. There'll be some adjustments. So. Oh, we're going to change the tape. Is it magic tap time?
Okay, so we'll change. I still have a couple questions. We'll go ahead and take a recess at 10:03. Okay, we're gonna reconvene at 10:11 p.m. I said I had just a couple of questions for Mr. Bosnowski. You answered the questions on the emergency access stuff. And just to clarify, because I know most of this stuff, whether it's bathrooms or things, there's a lot of just industry standard, and a lot of the details will come out. But just one thing, because I happen to have a couple kids that were gym rats, and we toured all over the state in all kinds of gyms, brand new gyms, old gyms. The things that everyone complains about, and then after they're built, it's an afterthought, is HVAC, the water, drinking fountains in different locations, not one, sound and lighting. So I'll just kind of go through a couple of those things, but I'd just like you to comment on the HVAC. I know that we're all energy efficient, but when you get into a gym and because of Title 24 or something, the HVAC really doesn't cool. In the summer, it's going to be reminiscent of the old gym. So good HVAC, the water fountains, sound and lighting. And when I say sound, it's not just the sound system, it's the mitigation of the echo chamber by sound deadening and things like that.
So I'll take at least one or two of those, and maybe Erwin, we can tag team off of each other. The HVAC system is certainly designed to cool. This will be the first gymnasium I've ever put air conditioning in. It's typically not installed. It's usually heat and ventilation only in a large facility such as this. And so the system is very large, 2 or 3 different mechanical units to serve the main gym area. And so we expect that it will serve it well and quietly. Another piece of that is the noise of a mechanical system, and so we expect that it'll serve it quietly. Drinking fountains, we are installing standard anymore. Whenever we put in a drinking fountain, there's a bottle fill station as well. And this facility has, I want to say it has 4 indoor and 2 outdoor stations. So kind of in the 4 corners of the facility, and then a couple of outsides as well. And so I think we at one time talked about, I don't know what the correct term is, maybe a boomer water or something, because there are those drinking fountains that have lower stations for your pets to get a drink from as well. And so we at one time had that conversation during the design process. I don't know if those are in there or not. Maybe that's on the list, Mr. Wenzel, for alternates is pet watering stations. And we
don't start that rumor.
and we do have, and Erwin, maybe you can take this one. We do have an acoustical engineer on the team, and he's going through the building as well.
Yeah. First of all, I concur with Mr. Bosanowski. It is unusual to have an air-conditioned gym, partly because of the size of the space and the cost to cool it. So most gyms, like you mentioned, your son traveling in some of these probably uncomfortable, is that they're all mostly naturally ventilated, and natural ventilation only goes far depending upon what the outside air is. So there you have, if it's very hot outside, you're never going to cool it that much with natural ventilation. You'll get a breeze, right? You'll get this sensation that it's a little bit cooler. But that's typically what gyms are. This one is designed with an air conditioning system, which means all the ductwork and everything is sized for cooling. So it is not, you will not experience the fact that it's too hot outside and therefore there's not enough of a differential. It will be cool because it is air conditioning. So, and it will be quiet because the ducts are very large and they're moving in a low velocity. Now, in terms of the acoustics, the entire ceiling of this thing is an acoustical metal deck. So it has acoustical insulation in all of the flutes and little indentions in the deck. And what you want to do is maximize the ceiling area. So your ceiling area is about the same as your floor area, and so it's entirely covered with this acoustical metal deck. So I think the acoustical aspect, you're not going to get the hard echoing, hard surface that you have on some older gyms, stucco ceilings and things like that. And we do have an acoustician on our team that has been reviewing this project as well.
Okay. And with regards to the sound, you mentioned something about using an old sound system or something. So are we going to?
So yes, the campus requested the reuse of this system, and our sound engineer visited the campus and inventoried the equipment and shared that this equipment is some of the best that you can buy. And so they recommended that we use it. It's expandable, it's current technology, and so it's new enough to where it can be. Now, we also have, as part of our user group, the performing arts and band folks as part of our user group. So they're giving input into our design as well in terms of systems and speaker locations and things of the like. If they had a performance in the gymnasium, which end of the complex would the stage be set up at? And so we have allowances in our budgets for lighting, for performances, things of that nature. So we have much more than just the gymnasium's lights. We have the center court light for the championship wrestling match. We have, as I shared, some performance lighting planned to be put in there. And we have part of that second story mezzanine deck has extensions of that deck for standings following spotlight towers to be up there, or videography stations, video recording equipment on almost its own balcony, independent of that mezzanine. So the user group input, where we included the visual and performing arts folk, has really yielded some of exactly what you're referring to, those features that we don't want to miss when we have this opportunity to make sure that they're included.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is good work. That's the end of my questions. Just the comment I would have on it is, to me, this project going in, and I do appreciate the folks on site having input and the community having input. But I think, my expectation when we do this is that this is going to raise expectations for years to come in this city. And I truly appreciate the fact that the schools, our public schools, are taking lead on this. Community-generated finances are coming through our schools, are going to lead this community. And to me, that's unique, and I think we should capitalize on it. This is going to be a signature project that, to me, is going to be transformational for this community. And to me, nothing short of a first-class facility is going to do right. I don't care if it's Livermore, it's Granada, or what school it is. When we do these projects, to me, this is transforming this city. And to me, that's the responsibility that I think we all have going forward, is that the school district is leading here. We're not following, we're not copying, we're in the lead. And it's because of that community support, $240 million coming in. And I truly appreciate that. And so it's a lot of responsibility going forward. And this is really good work. So thank you very much. Oh, follow up, Mr. Rogi.
Clarification on one. The building code, or the new building code, says that the building has to be built for solar, but that doesn't include the infrastructure like wiring runs and stuff like that, correct?
No, interpretation, the minimum part of the interpretation of code solar ready means that you have to design your structure to at least support a solar panel load. And so that's the minimum amount of work to meet that compliance. And then beyond that, we have provided pathway, no wires, but conduits, a pathway to get from the roof to a location where we have designated and planned for location for inverters. It's not in the job, but we plan the space for it. So we've taken the, the solar ready a little bit farther than just incorporating the super load from the solar panels on the roof.
It's good to hear. And then it just occurred to me, how many events can we actually have in this gym at one time that are separate, that aren't going to interfere with each other?
Well, yeah,
Doo-doo.
I
two,
would say
three,
probably half
four
a dozen
rooms.
or 8. I mean, if you think of two full gymnasiums, the adaptive PE/dance room,
Wrestling
PE
room.
classroom, wrestling room, weight room. You want to add aquatics, you can add another 3 or 4 events there. So,
So at least 3 major events, I would assume.
I think yes, yeah.
We don't have any parking, but we can.
We will.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, we have no other comments, and I have no cards on this. So I would entertain a motion on this. Yeah?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the authorization to bid the Livermore High School Athletics and Aquatics Complex project.
A second.
We have a motion by Mrs. White. It's been seconded by Mrs. Prusso. Is there any discussion on the motion?
We would like to hear about the safety aspect of the triangle parking, if that's possible to do before we do the bid. In consistent.
Okay, so we'll get clarification on that.
Oh, I like clarification as a word. Yes,
So, but we're voting
we're voting.
on the superintendent's recommendation,
Yes.
and then
Go
you'll
for it.
bring us back clarification on that matter following our
Yeah,
vote.
we'll probably have ongoing updates about that
Okay.
particular, because it's probably going to evolve as we go forward.
Does that suffice?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm thrilled.
So we have clarification. So no other questions on the motion? Mr. Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Yes, Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. And that motion carries 5-0.
So for our next item, it's also Mr. Tim Bazanowski, our bond program manager, and he will be going through an award of contract recommendation for construction management services for 2 additional signature projects that are coming up.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers, President Bueno, members of the board and cabinet, and who's left. This will be much shorter, I promise. This recommendation to award a contract for construction management services is brought to you this evening as a contract where we already have this particular construction management firm, Kitchell Capital Expenditure Management Company, is currently working at Granada High School, Livermore High School, and our Playgrounds Improvements Project. And we're just looking to expand their services to 2 additional projects within the district for the full project scope of renovation of Mitchell K-8 School, and then the multi-phased full project scope renovation of East Avenue Middle School. The contract documents are attached to the board item, and I would take us to the superintendent's recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the award of contract for construction management services.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the award of the contract for construction management services to Kitchell CEM.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. White. It's been seconded by Mr. Wenzel. Now I'll call for any questions on the motion. Mr. Rogie.
Yes, I have a question. Kitchell's already done work for us?
Yes, they're currently working at both high schools as well as our playground projects.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions on the motion? Mr. Clerk, you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Did it again. President Bueno?
Aye. And that motion carries 5-0. If you would, let's see, we're going to our consent, I believe.
Oh, we have one more action item.
Oh,
So we have Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services,
That's right,
here
policy.
with a second reading of a board policy from Series 4000 for your consideration and approval.
Good evening, President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board. Tonight, I bring you a second reading of Board Policy Number 4112.8, Employment of Relatives. The first posting was November 29th, first reading December 11th. It's been a while, but the second posting was December 12th, and tonight we bring you a second and final reading. It is a replacement of an existing board policy, and government code and California regulations prohibit the district from making an employment decision or discriminating against a person on the basis of a relationship to a current employee of our district. The policy also includes written notification to the board upon offering of a job to a relative. And the policy is being modified to reflect current district policy.
And that's to a relative of any cabinet or board member.
Cabinet or board member, that is correct. Thank you for the clarification. I'd be glad to take any questions at this time, but the superintendent's recommendation is to approve second and final reading from Board Policy Series 4000.
Okay, thank you very much.
President Bueno, I move that we adopt second reading of Board Policy Series 4000, 41128.
I second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Rogie. It's been seconded by Mrs. White. Is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Rogie, if you call the roll, please.
Yes, myself. Aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Crusoe.
Thank you very much.
Give up.
Okay, we're going to move into Section 11. These are our consent. I believe there's 15 of them on tonight. So I would entertain a motion to move the consent items.
Mr. President, I would like to just one brief comment on 11.8. I want to thank everybody that does give gifts to the district, and I know it's been substantial, not only money, but also material things, and we do appreciate it. And of course, as always, keep on giving. Thank you.
Very much.
Don't just stop now.
Also, I was wondering if we'd have a discussion on 11:15.
We're going to pull that?
Could we pull that and then do that separately?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have to pull that item. Okay, so
Mr. President, I move that we adopt consent items 11.2 through 14 and inclusive of 16 and not 15 at this time.
okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rogie to move items 11:1 through 14 and 11:16, leaving out 11:15. It's been pulled by Mrs. Prusso. That motion's been seconded by Mr. Wenzel. Any discussion? Mr. Rogie, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
And Mrs. White?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Bueno?
Aye. That motion carries. Mrs. Prusso.
So I have a question on 11:15, which is the hiring of Fagan, Friedman, and Fulfrost. Mike, I have a couple of questions. One is, what is our history with F3, and then what amount is the retainer for our current contract? Those are my two questions. I don't know who answers that. Is that you?
So Mr. Biondi, our assistant superintendent, he
Yes.
can probably answer the first one, and then probably Mrs. Kinder would answer the second one.
So we have worked with this firm in the past, and the attorney who we are interested in working with our school district is actually someone who we have interviewed, and she has extremely positive and a great body of experience, especially in special education law, which is a specialty that we're retaining her for.
Thank you.
And for the second part, so once this contract is approved, there will be a purchase requisition for the retainer, and I believe we're going to be doing it for $30,000 for the rest of the year.
Okay,
So that
so
will be part of the PO list.
Okay. I think that's good for me.
And that's up to 30,000. Doesn't mean 30,000 would be used, but that's in the event that we would need to use. And then the other form that we use for specialty, for special education, the money that's been allocated or pre-allocated for that would, if we use this firm, would then be reduced.
Okay.
But so in fact, what Mr. Biondi said was that we're focused on hiring the lawyer rather than the firm.
Right.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I don't have
Then I
any
would
further
entertain-
questions.
Then I would
Yeah.
entertain a motion to accept 1115.
Okay, Mr. President, I move that we accept 1115.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mrs. Prusso, and seconded by Mrs. White. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Bueno.
Aye. That carries 5-0. So I believe there's a couple of consent rezos.
Mr. President, I move that we accept 12.2, 12.3, resolutions 19, or 28 and 29.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Myself, aye. Mr. Wenzel?
Aye.
Mrs. Prusso?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Myself, President Bueno.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0.
Losing it.
And we didn't remove anything under section 13. So we'll start with Mrs. Prusso on some board member updates.
Okay, since the last board meeting, I've had the opportunity to meet with each department in the district and got to know lots of people who work really hard on a daily basis and who all share the ultimate goal of a better education for the kids in Livermore. And I will someday know all of your names. And I would like to thank everyone who took the time and effort to prepare presentations in an attempt to educate me on their roles. And please forgive me if I ask lots of questions, and I will probably play the newbie card for the next 4 years. It was also very exciting to be able to participate in several holiday parties in which I ate lots of food, stole chocolate from very nice people, and got to listen to Livermore's chamber choir sing like angels. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to hand out ice cream sandwiches and honor roll stickers to the sixth graders at East Avenue Middle School. I was impressed to see 131 students receive the honor and was equally impressed with the tenacity at which sixth graders can both eat ice cream and try to slip out of school early at the exact same time. We are clearly educating clever future humans who will contribute much to our society. And then finally, this morning I was able to attend the workshop in Sacramento to learn about the governor's proposal for the budget. And it seems that there are many things to celebrate while maintaining careful budgeting and spending in future years. And I'm also grateful that we have smart people like Susan who can make sense of all the numbers. And I'm looking forward to the many exciting events coming up in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rogie.
I'll waive time.
Thank you. Mr. Wenzel.
Just quickly, we had our Tri-Valley SELPA meeting the other day. There were some new laws that apply to students. I made copies if you'd like to look at them. Also, we will be receiving approximately $123,000 and change back for the SELPA. This was something that there was issues that happened in 17, I believe. And through financial corrections, we'll be getting our apportionment in February.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wenzel. Mrs. White.
5 of us in the room were in Sacramento at 9 o'clock this morning, and I think we're all tired. Let's go home.
Thank you, Ms. White. And just very quickly, just a public acknowledgement and thank you to Supervisor Haggerty's office. The frequency of our meetings is kind of sparse this time of year. We're right back on the normal schedule, but he gave us an opportunity. They had a little bicycle they were going to give away, and we were able to put him in contact with the Livermore Pleasanton firefighters and the Livermore Police Officers Association. And in that collaborative effort and working in conjunction with Junction School, that's like the old Sesame Seed thing, right? Conjunction Junction. Junction School, we were able to give away a little over 20 bicycles to some kids that really needed them as part of our safe routes to schools and kids that were having a hard time getting to school. So it's pretty good program, and Livermore Pleasanton firefighters and the Police Officers Association pledge next year to go fivefold on the effort. So looking forward to that. So thank you to Supervisor Haggerty's office.
And in the interest of time, I will also cut short, but I can't cut too much. So first of all, last Saturday, we did have the annual math counts. This is the 23rd highly competitive annual math counts, and it was hosted by our school district, but is open to all middle school students in the city. So we had 142 students from 7 Livermore schools showcased for mathematical skills and creativity and problem solving. Participating were Christensen, East, Joe Mitchell, Junction, Mendenhall, and Livermore Valley Montessori, as well as Our Savior Lutheran. So it was quite a competition, and it was fun, and we want to thank Trustee Rogie and Trustee White for being there as well, along with our mayor, to celebrate the students, and then we'll all get to meet them. The top students will be coming to, I believe it's our next board meeting, so you'll get to meet them in person and congratulate them because they are pretty stellar. Today I had an opportunity, speaking of students, to meet with Vineyard Alternative Leadership students, and this is a group that was just formed last year, but they have a lot of really great ideas about things they'd like to see and some changes, and also shared a lot of what's really working well at Vineyard. So I'll be meeting with them, I believe, every 3 weeks or so to kind of get them a little boost about, to activate their student voice. It's a smaller alternative school, but they have, ideas and things that they'd like to see happen. So we're going to work on helping making some of that come true for them. And then just a reminder, tomorrow is going to be the Granada High School Athletics Aquatic Complex groundbreaking. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but due to weather conditions, it's been postponed. So I want to make sure that it will be postponed, and we believe it will be February 20th at 3:30, but you'll get more information on that. And then this Thursday, if you're not busy and you would like to go to the Livermore Valley Wine Growers Foundation award ceremony, they're going to be giving out proceeds from their big major event. And I spoke at it last year, and then the Dublin teacher had a video showcasing our students with STEAM, and it was so successful that our school district is one of 3, and we'll each be getting the same amount. We'll be getting $35,000 towards STEAM education. So it's really pretty phenomenal. And then last but not least, next Monday, we'll be remembering and honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Monday, January 21st. So I wanted to leave you with a saying. All of us here are devoting our lives to public service, whether it's in your professional career or in your volunteer capacity as board members. And I want to remind you of his saying, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And so that's why we choose careers in public service, and also why we choose love in LVJUSD. So let's remember when we celebrate a holiday who it is commemorating, and that many of his dreams for us have come true, but we still have a ways to go. And so our students are pure models of compassion and empathy and all that he stood for. And we hope that we will continue to nurture and cultivate that in them. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. No further business. 2239 adjourned.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be tornado next Thursday.